smells good. Is it Earl Grey?
It's green tea.
I can smell it.
Fun. The entire 20 minutes we're over is all on Jim. He owns that.
Did you not know if you asked him that sort of you'd get? It's always like that, but
Jim said to me, I don't have much to say.
Oh, yeah.
He just had this much on his
Probably
paper.
didn't. An hour.
There was this much on his paper, and I thought, wow, where is he getting all
I was
of
waiting
that?
for you were going to start the timer on him. I was waiting for it to go yellow.
I don't think at a celebration like that you put people on a timer.
I can't.
I like yours. That was very nice.
Thank you.
Because Mom was looking like,
Okay, let's do this.
you guys were doing what? What were you up to?
Wandering.
All right. Oh, I'm calling this meeting to order. Welcome to this evening's City Council study session. The first item on our agenda is the Board and Commission appointment deliberation. So,
Thank you for getting me this.
did everyone fill out this?
I did.
Okay,
Yes.
and I did call a couple council members just because the first time that I went through this myself, didn't realize what we were doing, and all of a sudden it just kind of ended. And so anyway, I just gave them all a heads up. So let's just start out with Alliance for Commerce and Inglewood. Does somebody want to make any general comments before we start?
I do.
Okay.
So when I went through and worked on filling out this document, Mayor Pro Tem, I think many of us noticed that the process of elimination was quite easy for many candidates, and that I think can reduce a lot of our time in deliberating. And so not necessarily going in order, but I think based on who applied for what and who was qualified, it was easy to occupy certain spots. About 7 of them, and then we had, about 11 remaining for discussion. I think by looking at certain candidates first, based on what they wanted, what their interest was, how strong they were as candidates, and what the availability for those positions was, I think we can eliminate a lot of extraneous discussion. Also, secondarily, I want to say that I had put together a little rubric, a system with a scaling system, which I used for each candidate, and I had questions under certain categories, and I was using that as the candidates were meeting with us. And so it's a 1 to 5 score, just something quantitative to secure my feeling about candidates. And if in the end it comes down to who's better than this, which of these 2 or 3, et cetera, is stronger. So if it's something that might benefit the council, it's something that I have available. I showed you for a minute, but there was so much going on. About 3 different conversations, to your credit, and it wasn't really an opportune moment to share that with you, but that's something that's worked in the past. I've used it for many job interview situations that I have been involved in. So I have that, and that work I did. But I guess, order is always great, but for me at home, it was easier not to go in the order of the document, but in the order of certain people being easily placeable here and there, easily eliminated. So,
right, and that's fine. And I think I did that too. I went.
Oh,
through
you did, yeah.
Okay, so I just for purposes of discussion,
Yep.
And then before we've just come to consensus on who to choose. What about Alliance for Commerce in Inglewood?
Hey, Rotem, may I
Yes.
pardon myself for just one?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. I would encourage you to continue the discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I was concerned because I saw him did that, but I wasn't sure you saw it. I just wanted to ask Councilmember Wing, do you have copies of what you did? Is that what you're...
I beg your pardon, I do not.
Oh, okay. I just thought maybe
intended
you
to.
did. Okay.
Ended up not.
That's fine. Yeah, I was wondering about ACE too.
Yeah.
Okay.
what happens with that, if, and what the parameters are for that. I looked at it again. It doesn't,
Before we begin, if we're still in comments.
As far, when I looked, there was just one person that applied for ACE and the other two things that they were interested in there was no openings available.
right, and I wasn't sure about whether the business, what the business was.
I asked that in the interview, and she didn't say a business name, I don't think.
I asked, we were making comments before we got started. Are we getting started now, or?
If you want to make comments.
Just a really quick one. I would like to Councilmember Olson's point for what Councilmember Wink did, I would like to have that shared with the council so that we can consider whether we want to adopt that in the process that we use next time.
Yes.
It would be kind of even if she had copies right now, how are we going to go ahead and
Right.
evaluate something and use it? But I would like,
I'd like to see the categories, though, but not, I don't need them now, but it's nice to know that you spent all that time on it.
Okay.
So we'll get
no,
some
you
copies
need
in
to
by-
let me finish.
Oh.
You need to let me finish. Because even if I had it right now, it really isn't something that I could use because I've already used my own method and gone ahead and done that. But if we want to have a conversation about how we do this in the future, I think what she's put together, we could go ahead and spend some time. So at some time in the future, I'd like to go ahead and have that piece in there, because then we'll just waste a lot of time in the explanation of how it all works for you, and we've already all kind of done our thing. But I would like to kind of
Okay.
get the information in the future if we could. Thanks.
Would that be possible, Mr. Keck, to perhaps put that on a study session agenda before the next board and commission?
Absolutely, Mayor.
Like
Pro
a
Tem.
already
couple
in
months
June.
before,
Yeah.
maybe, so we...
It happens fast.
It does.
It does. It
fast,
happens really
so-
fast. I have some other things I'd be glad to send you to that I've suggested in the past that we just haven't done, and one of them is what happens when they're sitting out. There's some info we could be giving them before they come in, so that if they wanted to consider another board and commission, they didn't realize we had several people who. If they were sitting there reading that and say, oh, I didn't think about this and what nights they meet and all that, I think there are a number of things that we could actually make things.
So I think that's worthwhile. I don't want to take up time tonight, but you made some suggestions the other night too.
Yeah.
So if we
think
could
we
do
could.
that and make sure it's on the schedule well before we do the next round, that would be helpful.
I think that is a great idea.
Thank you for allowing me the time. Go ahead. I didn't mean to.
Thank you. And it may take me a little while to realize that people's.
Council Benita knobs?
Sticks. Talking sticks.
Okay. So puppy is here.
Is there did anybody put anybody in for Alliance? Amy.
I put Travis Ridley. She was the only person I think that applied for that. But I think there was a question about her, the business that she owns. She said she wasn't a personal assistant.
Self-employed.
Yeah.
So she's self-employed. So I just wondered, does that qualify? So that was on all of these, it just happens to be the first one here. That's why I was asking. I was wondering, does she qualify for that even to be considered for it?
We have put people on there before that were home businesses, that were running their businesses out of their homes. As a real estate agent would be running their business out
Yes,
of
but
their home.
usually you register as a business, so I don't know if she's registered, but if we cared, I don't think it says you have to be a registered business in what it explains as ACE, so I'm fine with it as long as we all agree.
And I think that we appointed Nathan Cole to the ACE committee also, and he is a pastor of a church.
Right.
So if we're okay with that.
I had her down. I liked the fact that she had the small town fields. She was also involved in the Oxford and Navajo and some of the issues. She seemed to be kind of engaged in that area. It's not uncommon for us to have a lot of people in business from downtown, and she's in the district. I believe she's in District 4, and I kind of like that we have a little bit more representation for the business for all of what's going on in our area of town. I love what we're doing downtown, but I would like I'd like some focus a little more spread out on what's going on in the south end of town too, and I think that she would be a good representative for that.
Okay. we're talking about Alliance for Commerce.
Thank you.
For Drevis.
Yes, Drevis.
Then can we go back, I mean, if we're okay with that as an applicant, then I'm fine with moving ahead with that, and I agree with you totally about, we actually should start going after industrial areas again, because we've gotten low on that. We're getting a lot of really different, kinds of non-representative kind of group, but, and we've done that from various times. Part of it's going out and talking to some folks and trying to get them to do it. But in the meantime, I'd love to, if we can find a quick way through this, if somebody's got 7 they think are shoo-ins, and we all kind of look at them and go, yeah, it's a shoo-in for me too, let's just do it and then move on.
Okay.
And if they're not, then we can say, no, it's not a shoo-in for me.
Okay, all right, that'll be fine. City Attorney.
ACE is comprised of persons who are business owners or managers, people who own commercial property, and just general persons in management without regard to residency. So it's much broader than just owning to be a business owner.
So I read that and I thought it's pretty open. We have not in the past, sometimes it's been questioned as to whether we would do something like that, but we've done it before, so. And the
Well,
pastor
actually,
manages lots of people.
I think it was somebody living in the town. Well,
Anyway.
we don't want to go back through anecdotal
Okay.
stuff, so she
Okay.
cleared it up.
Can we just put her in?
Yep,
Works for me.
Okay.
that works for me.
Yes, let's put her in. And if there's, I mean, there may become a question later down if somebody put her someplace else. So, did anyone pick anybody for the alternate?
I did not.
No.
Didn't see anybody.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see anybody either. And I actually did leave the alternates. I tended to leave the alternates empty because we didn't have as many applicants. But let's go ahead. Board of, Councilmember Berentine?
I was, because there wasn't a second person who necessarily applied for it, but Judith Dunlop actually runs a business as well, and she might be someone we can consider, depending. She only applied for the election commission, but I know that she also runs a business as well, so it might be something if we could keep it in the back of our mind.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So, Board of Adjustment and Appeals.
So Kristen Schledhorn only applied to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, is perfectly suited to that board given her legal background and her current position, her full-time position as assistant city attorney. She presented well. I think she'd exhibited a great deal of skills and experiences and knowledge that suits that particular board extremely well, and her husband served on that board previously, so there's a little household historical knowledge also supporting her. So I think that one was...
It was, to me, it was a straightforward one, too.
I agree. She would be a great fit.
Okay.
Her comments about considering what happened that she had to do as the city attorney when she was in Littleton, and her comments about the community and when wanting to make sure that board wasn't filling in for the lack of some ordinances, that it wasn't trying to override some other problems we have, and her willingness to look at that. So I agree. I think that one's pretty easy. So
Okay, thank you. What about Code Enforcement Advisory Committee?
Dale Harris.
So we
Go
had
ahead. I was just guessing. But I didn't
two
look at your-
applications for 2 positions, right? 2 applicants for
Who did
2
you have
spots. I didn't put anyone.
Oh,
I had Dale.
I had Dale also.
yeah. Okay.
I
And then we had a second
think
person.
that's fine for Dale to be there. I don't know.
Councilmember Preston?
Sure.
I'm fine with that one.
Okay. And the alternate, did anyone have anyone for the?
I did not.
Okay.
No.
All right.
And then today we got the notification that that Lynette Moore, I believe her last name is, but Lynette, who was previously the alternate on Cultural Arts Commission, just gave us notification that she unfortunately is resigning due to work conflict and
So
her
there's
inability to meet. So before I resigned from Cultural Arts, I was asked to write a letter to council supporting her being moved up to a regular member, and then now she's indicating that she can no longer serve on this commission.
Okay, so there's actually 2 openings plus. an
I believe
alternate.
there may be.
Can I ask a quick question of the city attorney? Why do we get that information that she's, I mean, I'm not sure.
Today. Yeah.
hold on. We were getting that information in confidential envelopes, and I don't know why.
About the two people resigning?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why either.
Okay, so I wasn't sure, I mean, if somebody's disclosing that and I'm getting it as a confidential,
Yeah, I think the only reason you got it in a confidential envelope is we provided the actual communication, which has, we could have whited out, I guess, their contact information. I think we're pretty sensitive about that, so.
okay,
Yeah.
so, all right. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure before we
Sure.
continue
No,
to
I understand
talk
your
about them
concern.
resigning, if there was some reason for that. Thank you.
No, it's public, but we didn't want to put, we want to make sure that you see that it was a communication directly from the person.
All right, thank you very much. And so we have how many openings for that? And can we even fill that if we haven't really, can we not fill that if we haven't officially accepted their resignation in council?
I would wait to fill it since you have not yet officially accepted the
Okay,
resignation.
so we still just have the two. We still just have two. Okay, thank you for clarification.
All right, so who did you put in for the Cultural Arts Commission?
I wrote whoever Amy, no, I'm
I
kidding.
said Martin Gilmore. I think he's great energy. I think he would be a good fit for cultural arts, and especially now
Which
that
one?
Martin Gilmore.
Oh, thank you.
Now that we don't have a musician on cultural arts anymore, we need another one. So I think he is a good fit.
Did you have an alternate too?
I didn't.
I didn't either. I had Martin in there too.
Did you, Cheryl, have an
I
alternate?
just had Martin.
Okay, so we'll,
Well, who else applied to,
Nobody.
pardon?
Oh, yeah, it was just
I didn't think anyone else was a
Brian
good
did.
fit.
Brian Brockhausen applied to it.
You had Greg, the cultural, oh no, the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee.
It was Brian
I thought the Brian Brockhausen, CAC, Martin Gilmore.
yeah, there were only two.
I thought there was another one that was interested in.
Well, we can, we
If you
can
look
come
at
back
this
to that
one, this is still correct, right? Okay,
Yes.
so this one just shows, yeah.
Okay, what about the Election Commission?
I had Judith Dunlop.
Judith Dunlop.
Yep.
And yet I think she would be a good alternate to Ace as well, and she lives in town and might have some flexibility, so I don't know. How many positions are for the Election Commission?
One.
I thought there was,
Two applicants for one regular position.
Oh, Cash Parker and Judith Dunlop. But I
Cash.
put him a couple
PPP.
different places.
Yeah, I think you can be used elsewhere as well.
I think we would underutilize Cash putting him on the election commission.
Two.
Firefighters Pension Board. I didn't see any applicants.
I didn't see any either.
Okay. Historic Preservation Commission.
I don't know if we should come back to this one. Nobody applied for it,
Okay.
but a couple people, we mentioned it to them, so I don't know, maybe we should
Okay,
come back to
all right,
that.
we'll come back to that one. What about Parks and Rec Commission?
Amber Christopher?
I had her as well.
I did too.
And Kate Truesdell too, I had both of them.
You had
But
both of
Kate was,
I had Kate
It
somewhere
wasn't
else.
on her first choice, but I also,
I think she was the late entrant, is that right?
she was very interested in the Urban Renewal Authority, and let's see.
she was
Something
open
about
to more,
her-
and Parks and Rec. As a matter of fact, she was
she
actually
was
very
open to a lot
excited
of things.
Yeah,
about Parks and Rec.
she was very excited about Parks and Rec.
I think that would be a good place for her.
Something in
too.
her background.
So,
Oh, she had that. Yeah, she's the one that had that experience with the Downtown Denver Authority.
Yes.
They built that parks. Yeah, she
Right.
would be really
With all of the
tremendous. She'd
connectors.
be good on, right, exactly.
Okay,
So I think she'd be good on either of those two.
I do too.
She really had rich background for both those commissions.
I know, but the
urban work
urban renewal isn't.
experience and,
It doesn't really meet very much, there's not much.
First of all,
going on.
the urban renewal authority is not doing what these people think the
Right.
urban renewal authority is doing. It is not planning the redevelopment of the urban area. That's not
lecturing?
what that board is for.
Should get a job in
So,
community development.
and her experience with that, she really did quite a bit. And I was very excited about some of the stuff that she did I think Parks and Rec would be an amazing place for her.
So,
I think she picked that up from you, and you told her a little bit more about urban renewal, and she started to get it. That's
Right.
why I thought, no, I think she'd be better. in
They
Parks
think
and
they're
Rec.
doing housing, or that's not what urban renewal
Or
is doing.
Inglewood Housing Authority type thing. It's not that either.
Quite, not even that, yeah.
okay, so
True.
which one did you put where? I mean, one of them is a regular, oh, they're both regular.
Yeah, they're both regular members.
So Amber and Kate from Parks and Rec, is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Tentatively, we don't make
Yep.
decisions in study sessions.
Not what I'm suggesting.
I didn't think you were.
Planning and
Okay,
zoning.
planning and zoning?
Alex Wenzel,
I
I put as one person.
I had Alex and Judy Brown.
have a huge problem with any more real estate people or somebody who does elections. When you have somebody who is as involved, his company, as involved in the Littleton City Council race as he was, that's what his business does. And I'm very concerned about having that, or any more real estate people. I think Judith did an amazing job with the Inglewood Housing Authority, and I think that the pushback that we're getting from the community, I had Carolyn. I thought she interviewed very well for this, and as a project manager, as Amy knows, is a very important thing to do in a board like that to kind of get things together. We have a board that isn't meeting, that's having some concerns, and we need to make sure that we've got some grounding back in all of this.
So I want to make sure I heard correctly. Was that geared toward Alex Wenzel, your initial comments?
His business is campaigns and supporting candidates in there, and I don't want to
The attorney
politicize.
that's a chief data strategist that doesn't work as an attorney? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what he
Are you asking me or are you telling me?
No, she's
I
asking.
mean, I'm
That was
trying to
a clear
finish.
question.
Okay.
That was a clear question. The one who works as a chief data strategist, that's the one you're referring to?
That's not what he does now.
Yes, that is current.
No, that isn't what he does now.
It says till present. He used to be an attorney. He's a chief data strategist. I can read.
Okay.
That is what he does for a marketing
Launched
firm.
cutting-edge digital display affecting advertising offering for political campaigns and corporations. Participate in strategy and banding discussions for campaigns and corporations. I had extensive conversations with the candidates that hired him for the election in Littleton. That's what I was talking about. I am concerned about politicizing something that is a board like that has so many functions going on right now. That's what I was talking about, is the connection
His
with that.
role as chief data strategist.
I think that in his interview, he even said he
No,
wins
I just read
campaigns,
what
that
it
that was
said.
his job, which, I
I'm
mean,
reading what it
more
says.
credit to him. I don't think that is here or there, but I think he definitely is in politics and campaigning for sure. That is his 9 to 5 job.
And I'm grateful that he is, but because I know the role that he played in that, and it was very contentious election there on issues that were going on, that we have to be very careful about a board like that and politicizing that.
So did he help the
Position.
people that won get in? Yeah,
Two of them.
two of them got in.
Two of them got in. And it was less than 1% of what was going. And I think he did a beautiful job on the
Yeah, the
on
fire department did too,
medical
but-
marijuana board, or the liquor and medical board. And I like him. And I know him, and I like him. But I think that we are. It's a very dangerous thing to kind of politicize a board that's having this kind of trouble and these issues going on.
So then I don't know if we're using this or not. We're being,
well, if
we're
you-
being
if
fairly
you use it-
behaved right now. Our city attorney, do you have any comments about whether we should be careful about someone's actual job, their professional life in terms of this kind of a position?
I don't think that this is a legal issue. I really think it's being posed as a policy decision.
Okay. So it's really about the ethics of it, probably.
Well, not even that. I think Alex is a very ethical person. I'm
That's
very
not what I'm
concerned about the
saying.
perception to the public on what's happening with that board, especially when we have so many contentious issues.
I just don't see how someone's helping people get elected has anything to do with planning and zoning. But that aside, I think Judy Brown does have a background that would be incredibly helpful. She's not a developer. She's a real estate agent. She knows what's going on in the world. She hasn't done that her whole life. She's done a number of other things. I think she'd be incredibly insightful. She does not have, she has a very open mind about things, and I've seen her change her mind when she gets good information, and work with teams when there's really difference of opinion. So I've seen her do it on the Housing Authority. I saw some things that she did when she did Habitat. I think she would be tremendous on it. I'd rather put her in as a regular member then, and maybe Alex. I don't know.
I think that we already have that.
Judy Brown and who?
And Kate Truesdale, who we chose Chris Morris.
Oh, yeah.
I think that you already have that representation on the board, though, and what we're missing is a little bit more of somebody from the community, and that's why I really appreciated what Carolyn was bringing. Her concerns and her feedback after attending a couple of meetings, I think, were insightful, professional, and
Fine person.
that's the kind of thing we need. This board has not met since September 19th. We have some issues going on where this board has to really kind of take control of what's happening and make sure that we've got a good working relationship with staff and the community.
Yeah, that
And
isn't
I have some
necessarily
concerns.
the board's fault. I think we've also probably need to help them with direction. But I actually put Carolyn on the Historic Preservation Commission because I thought she had some really great possibilities there as well.
She made it pretty clear that her interest was in the planning and zoning, and I think the meetings that she's attended, the conversations and her coming to council, I have a huge amount of respect for what's going on, and we have a very contentious situation happening with P&Z that, and it is, in part, the board has to start, all of these boards have to start taking their role seriously. They have to understand what the law is and what power that they have. The staff should have never canceled a meeting. It isn't up to the staff to cancel or have a meeting. So the boards have to start taking the role that they need instead of relying so much on staff to do a lot of that kind of heavy lifting.
I'm
too.
saying that Judy would do that as well. I'm not
I don't think
disagreeing
so.
with you. I'm not disagreeing with you.
But we have 2 spots.
So,
Okay,
and
Councilmember-
9 applicants.
Councilmember Cuesta, do you have any input on?
I do like Judy myself as well. I'll probably, this definitely was the one we had the most demand for of our applicants, so I think that there's a lot to sort through on this one. I'm probably going to review each resume one more time. I appreciate that we don't want this board to get, I'm not sure if I would use the term politicized, but just where people start to have preconceived notions of the conclusions people will reach in advance. I don't necessarily pull that away from Judy. And the same with Alex. I do think he's an upstanding guy, and I don't believe he comes in there with any predetermined avenues that he's going to take on any given matter. This one to me was the hardest to select. I'm a little biased toward Judy. She is D4. I've spoken with her many times, had some conversations with her. I think she's tremendously dedicated to the city of Inglewood. I do think she wants what's in Inglewood's best interest, and she'd give any information a fair shake. I'm still kind of in flux on this one. This one was probably going to be a little bit more of a game time decision for me.
Okay, and Councilmember Wink, who did you put on?
For the planning and zoning,
Yes.
I had put Alex, and I didn't put anyone else, but it is the I think probably the more complex decision because we have 9 applicants for 2 spots.
Right.
And so I left it really, I penciled Alex in and left it for after we
Okay.
Yeah,
And
we'll
I mean,
go through
we
the
can go back
others.
to that. I do want to share that I did choose Carolyn Morishell because of the fact that she had read the comp plan, she understands different aspects, and I believe that she, in my opinion, she interviewed the best for that. So I think let's come back to that one, but I would like to entertain maybe, maybe if we're going to do one person that some people don't agree, then we could do the other person as well. So let's come back to that. Okay, Police Pension Board.
This is where, cash came into play.
We had one that wanted it. It was great.
With full understanding that it was
Yeah.
he goes, I bet that's a hard board, and we went, we're not talking. And he can do it during the day as well. I think that was very nice. He seems to have some background or interest in that, and that was very nice.
that was great.
We'd like to do fire as well.
He might. He seemed very open.
He seemed open.
I think we could
Very
ask him
open.
to do it, to be honest.
And we asked him about serving on multiple boards, even though it's not what we really want, correct? I think
No,
Mayor Pro Tem
there were-
Russell mentioned to him that, this isn't our typical, but
Actually, we agreed, like fire pension, the police pension board, that we could
Could do double
allow that, and that was,
Yeah, it could be allowed to be on something else. So
I think it was more of a guideline. I think it's
let's go
great.
on then to Public Library Board.
Amy Wilson?
I had Amy Wilson on the regular member expiring 2/1/21.
Okay.
I did too.
Yep, I did too.
And then I didn't have anybody else.
I didn't either.
I didn't have anyone else either.
But she was the only one that applied for it. But I do think there were some people that were open to some other things.
Okay, and there were some people open. No one stuck out to me for that board. Let's go on to Transportation Advisory.
You mean besides Amy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greg Nattison and Mark Monroe?
Ditto.
Anybody else?
I'm sorry, who did you say?
I had Greg as well. I really like Greg, and I think
Madison
Mark
and
would be a
Mark
good fit as well.
Yeah, I had Greg Madison, yep. I heard Madison, and I thought I didn't know what that was.
Okay, and so I had those two also. And I left the alternate blank.
That's easy.
Okay, Urban Renewal Authority.
I had Zion.
No, we don't know.
Pardon me, Cheryl?
So I had Truesdale, but now I've agreed with what you mentioned, with Truesdale on Parks and Rec, so I have nothing.
what we all
Haven't-
did, what? I'm sorry.
We've all moved Truesdale to Parks and Rec, so now I have no one on Urban Renewal.
No one on Urban Renewal?
No.
I put Zion Spurgeon on there. And I can't remember
I had
why.
Patrick Lewis or Carolyn Marshall, but I also had possible other good fits for both of those candidates, so I'm open.
Well, that was the other one that she did. I don't know. I'd rather see that she was on planning and zoning, but
And that's where I'd place Carolyn as well.
within Urban Renewal Authority.
You had Zion also?
I had
No,
Carolyn.
Carolyn.
Oh, Carolyn, okay.
And Councilmember Barentine, where was it? We were discussing Carolyn just a minute ago.
Planning and zoning.
Right. Wouldn't Carolyn better serve on planning and zoning than, what do we think?
I think that
She
she
seems
would.
stronger on P&Z than URA, no?
I think so too.
I would like to see her be one of the people on P&Z, only because I appreciated the thoughtfulness in which she handled issues that came up about that meeting. I thought she was extremely professional about it. Must be a project manager thing, but
Good.
she
And
was
then-
very ordered in the way that she evaluated some of the stuff that was going on, and went back then and listened to another meeting after that, and actually called me back and said, the staff has corrected some of these things, and I thought that was very thoughtful. And she felt heard, and that's probably kudos to our city manager, because I assume that maybe there was a conversation that happened. But for somebody to go back then and see that, and then admit and go, I think they heard me, and that was a thoughtful thing to do. And I think that kind of thoughtfulness and gentleness in approaching some of that is needed on that board. So if Judith Brown is the other person, then, I mean,
One is first.
I
and
mean,
the other
I'm
one
only
an alternate.
concerned that, we have so many people come and go, you guys are just in the pockets of the developers and stuff. So I guess maybe I'm shying away from a little having people in these spots where they're so strong, and it looks like professionally they can maybe have some concerns. But if you guys feel and talking to, my only experience with her is on the Inglewood Housing Authority. So, if you've had more conversations
have
with her
held-
about real estate and
No,
how she feels about, or you don't feel, think that
Well,
would
the thing
interfere.
with her is, I don't think she has an issue she's coming in with. That's what I
Uh-huh.
worry about anybody applying for P&Z. Like, she's not trying to come in and change our policy on something because she's really upset about something. I think she really cares about the city and wants to make sure that, and she's read the comp plan. She knows a lot about what's good. So I'm just looking for someone who doesn't have and I don't know Carolyn well enough to know that you've been handling, so it concerns me if we find out that someone has an issue and they're trying to get on it and change it. I mean, that motivates you to serve, and it's not a bad reason, but it's not.
I think she's been pretty honest about that, but I've attended all of the, most of the Friday coffees, and that's where I got the impression, because Judith has presented, and you're supposed to present your business at that function.
Yeah.
But that's where she's come in about other things going on and some of the stuff and the projects and the ADUs and things that have already made me believe that she is coming to the table potentially with some information, because that's where it was shared. But I'm willing to give it a shot. I mean, just because somebody has an opinion on something, we don't
Right.
want everybody just
No,
to be
you
a
want them-
lump of clay when they go
Yeah.
in. So I'm not saying that.
No, and
That
if you
was
watch
where
the
my
video,
concern-
sometimes it looks like some
Right.
people don't have any opinion.
Right, well,
Would there be support for perhaps putting Carolyn Marshall and Judy Brown on
Both on, and then leave
planning and zoning?
Alex for
Works for
something
me.
else.
all right, that's fine.
Sure.
Okay. And,
Who's who?
yeah, who's?
And it's not a
I'd say Judy
compromise
as
for
the
me.
regular member.
I think she did an amazing job. I think she's wonderful. I just had that concern, so thanks for
Yeah.
sharing your experience with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Mayor, which is the,
Judy Brown as the regular member and Carolyn Marshall as the alternate.
Alternate.
thank you.
And remind us, do they do go to all the meetings, don't they?
They do.
So that we need to let Carolyn know that.
Correct.
So that she's up to speed on everything.
And that's twice as many meetings as the board.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's a rare
now
weight.
let's go
On
back
that-
to,
Pardon me,
okay,
on that same note, that is with every board, that every alternative will attend each meeting.
Correct.
They
Yes.
should.
That's not just planning and
Yes.
zoning, okay.
And
thank
This
you.
one in
expectation.
particular, if you don't show up, you're not going to be able to help.
Right.
Like, if you didn't,
Sure.
we have some other alternates that, I mean, we shouldn't really say that.
And as a
but-
point of information, Member Questa, in the past, what is utilized as a measuring stick for a vacancy is if a person has been an alternate, they look at their attendance. If they've been attending and they get a letter of recommendation from the chairperson, then they're made, the council's made aware of that.
Thank you.
and I think also we're going to have board and commission training also at some point where the alternates really do need to step up to the plate and make decisions when a regular member is not there too. Okay, all right, so with that, let's go back to the Urban Renewal Authority. I have Zion Spurgeon in there also.
Okay.
I know, Amy, you had Patrick Lewis. He's only a 3-month resident.
Yeah, and I think he'd actually be a better fit for the transportation alternate member, because what he talked about a lot was kind of transportation issues.
And historic, yeah.
With the revitalization, easier access, public transportation, walkability, pretty much everything he talked about was transportation related.
Yep.
So I think he would be actually a better fit for the transportation alternate.
That's where I had him. I'm
Oh, you
sorry.
have him on the transportation alternate, and then, so we had 2 members and we put him as an alternate there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually thought he might be better. I still would like to consider him for the historic board as well. But I
Worried
think
about
both
that
he
one.
and Zion, neither one of them truly understood what the Urban Renewal Authority does.
Right.
Neither of them get it. I mean, and it's just not their fault. It's the name. It throws them. They think
Sure.
they're going to go revitalize the.
I would agree that his interview trended towards transportation. He talked about his bike a lot and
Okay.
mobility in the city, that he seemed to be, to check the boxes of Transportation Advisory Committee.
Okay, so Patrick Lewis there.
All right. For
The alternate? I believe,
Patrick
on
Lewis,
TV.
right?
Yes.
And then, do we have an alternate for urban renewal then?
We don't have anybody for
Okay.
Urban Renewal right now.
I mean, I put Zion on, so, but
Okay. And Zion, is there support for him? I mean, I thought I counted consensus for that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Works for me.
so we just don't have an alternate
Diana,
yet.
you are-
Well, yeah, we don't have the alternate, but
Okay, so then we need to go back to Historic Preservation Commission.
God, that one's hard.
I'm kind of worried about it, that it's so new already and there's already 3 vacancies.
Does anybody know why we have 3 already on that? But, I mean, I know that
We only
someone
appointed
moved.
5. We only appointed 5 to begin with.
Yeah, we were already
Lock-
short.
Lockmiller
They moved.
moved, so that's 1. But where was the 3rd? I thought we got a resignation from someone else. But who's the 3rd?
I can't remember her name. With down,
CJ?
no,
CJ's still on it.
she was the one on District 1 about that was constantly coming with the little boy, Garrett.
That's Cassandra.
That's
We already talked about
Cassandra.
that. We already talked
So
about
she
that.
was going to be, she was one of the people that we
Right.
originally put on. She
Oh,
moved.
she's the one I mentioned just
Oh,
now.
that moved, okay.
And then, I thought you were talking about the other person that we
There
got.
was one of the historic, there were 2 gals who were actually in the business who are with the historic, I think Colorado Historic, and one of them resigned. I don't know why.
But it's 3. So anyway, but
So we did
is
5.
it the 3 because it's the extra one that we didn't fill? We actually said we would put how many on that board? We
What's the
put
number?
5 on,
We put 5 on, we said we would put 7.
could up to 7, and so we only did 5 to get them going, and 3 already are resigned. That's like 2
No,
left.
2 are resigned from the 5.
Oh, okay, we've added 1 in then.
Yes,
So we're trying to get 6 on there
yes.
total, I mean, by the end of it all.
I actually think the board is 7.
Right.
Right, it's supposed to be 7. But they're-
Right.
We only
Up
gave
to
them
7,
5.
7.
We only gave them
Point
5.
of
because
I
that's all
think
that
part of the
applied.
problem,
Point of information.
Point of
go ahead.
information on the vacancies. So for instance, the Historic Preservation Commission, I get a little hesitant just putting a warm body there to reach capacity
yeah.
on a board. So it is okay if vacancies exist on these boards?
It is, but this board is in danger of shutting down if we don't. I don't think we have to have all 3 of them to keep it going, but I do think it would be good to have a couple more, because what happens is they won't have a quorum.
Understood.
And they can't.
So they have 3 left right now,
No, they have 4 left, I believe.
but we put 5 in there. So then maybe 2 of these are to try and get it up to,
Currently, you have C.J. Cullinan, Matthew Crabtree, Lauren Reek, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and then Melinda Ellswick.
Oh, yes, okay. So we have 4.
Melinda.
So you had Hannah Brown resign and Cassandra Letcomb.
Okay, those are the 2 that resigned.
she was the
Okay.
one that was the historic.
So we
person.
actually did put 6 on it.
You had 6.
Okay,
We were
great.
short.
Okay, so,
Could I, I think part of the problem was that when we started this board, we had this attitude like we didn't want the Historic Preservation Society and this board like to commingle or something. And we need to have 2 people that are recommended from the Historic Preservation Society. But our first round, we kind of were against anybody like, are you a member of the Historic Preservation Board? Like, that's a problem. I mean, of course, if somebody's interested, they would be. So I think aside from the people that we're getting as a recommendation, just because they're a member, I don't think should exclude them. I mean, there's some things that we really need this board to start doing, and it's kind of having a little floundering, and I'd love to have
We're gonna have to recruit
open this
them.
up idea-wise a little bit. We have a bunch of historic buildings that are, I mean, businesses are coming to me and landowners are coming to me saying, when are we going to have some kind of guidance on this to try and figure out where we can go with this? And so I would like to see if we could reach out to the Historic Preservation Board. I did have an opportunity to talk to Matt Crabtree, and it was my understanding that the Historic Preservation Board recommended 2 people, but I didn't see the application, so I don't know what happened. But I would like for council to consider that if we have some people come forward, especially the ones that are being recommended by the Historic Preservation Board, that maybe we could go ahead and just make sure that they get appointed, since that's a vehicle in there.
we limited it to 2, didn't we?
Yes,
So
we
I
did.
don't have any
as
trouble with going to
direct
3.
as direct recommendations.
Right, and then I'm fine with 3, but we didn't get them, so but
So if
now
you-
what do we do? And
Well-
let's recruit by June.
I do have one suggestion. I believe Cash Parker would be a tremendous asset to this committee. I think he has leadership. I think there is some interest in the history piece of this. I mean, I think we should ask him. He didn't necessarily apply for that, but he did say he was willing to help in any area. Councilmember Martinez.
I was going to say, did we, I think we mentioned earlier, maybe possibly asking him to serve on the firefighters pension board as well?
I think we should,
Leave that one big.
he filled one spot. Are we desperately short on the firefighters pension board?
If we don't fill it, we don't have a quorum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're at that point right now.
What are the requirements? Are there any other requirements for the board? I mean, are there some members that are like employees or something? Yeah.
Former firefighters, yes.
Manager Keck, how frequently do they meet?
They meet pretty infrequently, actually. I believe it's once a quarter. Meet second Thursday of February, May, August, and November at 4 p.m. And they meet directly either before or after the police pension board meets.
At the same time?
Oh, they do.
Right or after.
The same day.
Okay.
So are we
and
just
the
telling them they're the same board?
No. No.
Board A and Board B? Is that what you're doing to this?
Police and fire can't
How
mix
long
together.
are their meetings usually? Do they take a full hour, or are they usually done quick?
They're fairly quick. The longest part, I think, is hearing from the actuaries that talk about how the plan's doing and, you know, what the additional required contributions from the city would be, or the impacts to the plan members.
Are we in agreement then to have him asked if he is interested in doing both since they meet the same day? Is that what we're asking?
He seems like a great selection.
Well, we're
I'd
asking
like to ask him
that,
about
we're asking that, and, yeah, so does that feel like that's one board, and we can ask him to do this other one? Yeah, I think that is what we're saying.
I don't know, when she gets that look on her face,
I don't know.
that guy's done for. So,
I think I found my other.
you might want to ask him. I think that would, I didn't know they met the same day. I actually don't think that might be unreasonable to ask.
Okay.
So I bring that up now because I wouldn't then probably feel comfortable if we asked him to serve on a third one.
No.
But they both just, I mean, it's the same thing. It just still
No, I
meets
was
once
talking
a
about the
quarter.
Historic Preservation Society that we were just talking about, or the Historic Preservation.
In addition
just
to the
talked
pension
about.
boards.
Right.
I think we stretched him a little thin too there. I don't want.
Yeah.
I want to wear it a
That's why I brought it
It's
up.
still once a quarter.
True. It's none of the boards he applied for either.
I
So
know.
we've got 3 boards for you.
Except for that's what he said, is he wants to get involved,
True,
and that doesn't
true.
get him involved. And I think then I don't want him on the fire board, and I would rather he was serving on a board where he could start to get his footing on volunteering and doing that. I think that would be good.
I actually agree with that too. I mean, I know you need another.
We
I
have to
already
have
wrote it
a
down.
quorum,
Oh, you already
so.
wrote it down. Okay. Is it in ink?
I mean, you could. I mean, I still think we could consider that if they meet at the same time and there's still only once a quarter, and as an attorney, maybe that might be a good fit. I don't know, but if you think just because he has the title in 2 spots, that would be. Then I'm not going to take him up and do that to him. I would rather he was on another board.
I would like to give him the opportunity to choose.
To choose, right? Give them the options. Yeah.
Right.
Choose historic.
Historic
or-
preservation
Okay.
Or the other 2
Or
together.
firefighters.
And, I mean, are we open to him doing the other one as the third and looking at combining those 2 together? I mean, that would be
I'm okay with
the way
that.
around this. I mean, their work is
If
so
he's up for it,
similar.
that's
Why
great. I
not
don't wanna
combine the
stretch him
2
too
and
thin.
make
If he'll
it
do that,
fire
it's
and
fine with me.
police pension? Why not just go with it?
Well, he
As
can't
long as-
officially do that, but
No,
in
but
our
we could.
minds, yes.
We could over time here, right? We could go through a process to combine
I
these boards?
wouldn't want to go through a process to do that.
Not right now.
Right, okay, I think that we should leave it up to him, because I don't want him to get bored
Yeah.
with actuarial stuff. I mean, maybe he loves it, but asking him to consider the Historic Preservation Commission, I mean, is everybody okay with that?
I'm okay with it, but I've heard from a couple of council members that you guys weren't okay with people serving on 2. So I think
Except for
to
that we
ask
had
on
the
3
conversation
is
that
a
if there were
stretch.
pension boards,
Yeah.
that we were going to make the exception for that, so.
I get that, but to add a third onto that, you guys are okay with that after
No,
all the
I
discussions?
mean, if that bothers you, I'll go with that then, but I'm not going to take his second board up as something is another quarterly thing, and that doesn't really get him involved, and he seemed pretty passionate about wanting to get involved. So if the council isn't comfortable with somebody serving on 2 pension boards and a council, a committee, then
I'm fine with it. I've been fine with
Okay, and I mean.
those kinds of things all along so that we get our pension boards covered. There-
Well,
I-
even for now, I think we could go ahead and do that, and then still
There we
put
go.
the firefighters' pension board out, so that if we get, I mean, you could ask him temporarily too. So, okay, is there anybody else that you think we need to appoint?
So at this point, Alex Wenzel hasn't been appointed to anything.
Okay,
So
and he
whether that's our
only-
choice or not, but.
Right, he only applied for P and Z, isn't that?
And did we ask him, I didn't make a note of it.
No.
Actually,
He
we
did.
We did ask him.
He said he was open to others and historic.
There we go.
Who, Alex?
Yeah, I asked him.
And I wrote it down, I think he did. I don't think he was as excited, but
I thought he said, and it may be somebody else, I thought he was the one that said the time frame that P and Z worked out for him. It might have been someone else, though.
I just wrote down that he said he was open to others, including historic.
So we're doing Alex and potentially Cash, if he's willing to take it on for historic.
When does the Historic Preservation Society meet?
The
Wednesday evening.
third Wednesday of each month.
Okay, because I made a note on Alex's that he's only not free on Wednesday evenings.
So that wouldn't work.
He wouldn't work. Yeah.
that's when URA meets.
Well, that's the third, that's the historic preservation.
I mean, that's when historic meets, not.
Yeah, because on his application, please list days of the week that you are available Monday and Tuesday after 5. That's it.
We don't have a lot of boards meet on Monday.
No.
We don't have any. Except us.
No.
Okay, thanks.
Just you.
Thanks.
So.
Thanks for some grace on that.
Any
I wrote that
other-
down, too.
Any other suggestions? So if there's no other suggestions, should we just read down this right quick to make sure we're all on the same page?
Thank
Yep.
you. They gotta get their certificates done.
All right, Alliance for Commerce, Drevis, Ridley. Board of Adjustment and Appeals, Christian Sheldorn. Code Enforcement, Dale Harris. And correct me if we've added more. Cultural Arts Commission, Martin Gilmore. Election Commission, Judith Dunlop. We left, well, Firefighters Pension Board is a question.
But cash is the question, whether or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Historic Preservation, Cash Parker. Parks and Rec, Amber.
No, oh, okay, I had her in two places. I apologize.
Okay, so Parks and Rec, Amber Christopher and Kate Truesdale. Planning and Zoning, Judy Brown and Carolyn Morshell. Police Pension Board, Cash Parker. Public Library Board, Amy Wilson for the regular member expiring 2/1/21. Transportation Advisory Committee, Mark Monroe, Greg Nattison, and Patrick Lewis as the alternate. And the Urban Renewal Authority, Zion Spurgeon. Yep. Okay.
Then if you go back to Alliance for Commerce, we also had a question mark about Judith Dunlop perhaps having something there if she was interested, but that would, because Election Commission really only meets a few times in a couple of years, it might be good if she could do something like ACE.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Or she might do.
So you're going to ask on ACE?
Yep.
That's a good idea.
I think you were the one who suggested that, wasn't it? Did you,
No, I
Councilmember
meant,
Bierstein, is that what you meant, or did you mean another?
No,
one?
because I just realized because election, what I meant was, you said election commission because it meets so infrequently is kind of one of those boards like the pension, and I wasn't thinking that way. So that's why I was saying thanks for that.
How many times did they meet maybe in the last 3 years that you've
Election?
been on? Yeah.
Like once a year? Well, during an election year?
And usually it is just like one meeting, isn't it even?
Yeah.
Just kind of like,
We can ask Mr. Cohn, he's here in the audience, but all I can recall is they met once to do the draw for the
not here.
order of the election.
That's usually here with
Yeah.
He's not here tonight.
I just
The
think
one
that's
time
of
you
those
need 'em.
Add on with others.
Right,
Yeah.
I agree with that also,
Yeah.
because that.
Could you ask, though, I don't know whether she's interested or
Oh,
not.
we'll call
She
her.
might not be.
Yeah, we'll call and ask.
Okay.
I have on my list from her, though. Oh, no, forget it. Wrong one. I was looking at Judy Brown.
Okay, so let's move on
Where's
to.
Amy Wilson at?
Library.
Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
2021 library slots.
Do we need a break?
So we only have 2 people left. We have Brian Brockhausen, we have Alex Wenzel. And Brian Brockhausen went for the Cultural Arts Commission, P&Z, also other boards and historic preservation. And then Alec was P&Z, and he was open to others and historic.
Alex was open?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
So you can't
I
meet on
don't
Wednesday
try to
night?
trick
Oh, but you
myself.
can't- okay. You
I
can't meet on
didn't try to
Wednesday
trick
night.
myself making the
Well, I
notes.
looked and I didn't have
But
that
I
note,
didn't
but
look
that
at-
doesn't mean.
Amy just said that he only was open on Monday and
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay. So we can't put him on historic preservation. I can make a suggestion.
Well, I'd like, Brian Brockhausen went for the Cultural Arts Commission. You don't have anybody, you have 2 more spots, and 1 more spot open, another alternate.
I don't feel like that's a good fit.
Why?
Well, he doesn't. I don't know what he could contribute to that group. If we were going to put him on something, I think he would be. I'm not sure where he would fit. But I know he did mention he was interested in art. I don't know. What do others think?
I actually would defer to you on that because you have been, and actually maybe Councilmember Wink, because you've been on that board also.
So where we are, I think, is that each member, we talked a lot this current year about broadening our understanding or representation of art beyond maybe what we most traditionally think of as art and cultural art. And each representative on the commission currently represents directly some unique facet of art. That doesn't mean we cannot have someone who doesn't, but it's current state. The group's been, I think it's been good and healthy based on our strategic plan, and everyone's found some connection or some area that's passionate for them, whether it be a learning area or some way to grow and develop their scope of understanding and experience, blah, blah, blah. But there's no written stipulation that you must be X, Y, or Z to be on the commission. But what is the current state is that we have representatives from different facets of art.
Right, culinary and other.
We've got museum art type of representation, photography. We have sort of teaching students. We have, what's Rebecca, performance art. We talked about architecture. I think it would be great to get someone with a little bit of that kind of background to supplement that as well.
I guess I'm just a little concerned because it seems like these last couple of years we've had a lot of turnover on that board as well, and yet you've had another resignation on there, so that would be, well, once we solidify it, you're going to have another opening already before that's happening. So is that model working? Are they struggling with redoing this kind of model that you guys have said? Because that's, I think in all the time I've kind of been involved, I'm kind of surprised that we're having this kind of turnover. Is it just not melding, or what's going on?
No, actually, I think they're a really active group. They meet outside of the meetings a lot. They started, I think I mentioned before, they started using a project management software to manage their tasks. They're very, very active, and they work on many different subcommittees. They meet regularly.
Are they working too much, and that's why you're losing people? I mean,
I don't even remember the last member that we lost.
You have
to the
currently
election
3
year,
openings.
other than this one recently.
Their people are elected to city council.
Yeah.
and then
I warned them of that. I warned them
and then
of
you
that.
had several openings last time too, so you've got new members on there from last go round too.
We had a youth member on that. Is the last person we selected for that is a student.
Okay,
So
that probably is not a
that
good
creates a
fit.
problem.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
That's
So,
probably
you know,
not-
if we were going to put him somewhere, I would like to affirm him in some way, and the election commission would be my first place to start with him. But it doesn't let Judith Dunlap then.
No, I don't think that's a good fit. I mean, the ones that he mentioned, I think either the historic board or the I didn't have a problem with the Cultural Arts Commission, but there may be some issue with that, but at least something that he has some interest in.
Perhaps
I mean,
the
the last two
historic board would
times
be it.
that I saw him
Maybe so, I
happened to
don't know
be, the last two times I saw him happened to be at art shows. I'm not sure how many of the Cultural Arts Commission members were there, but
Historic-
he was at art shows, so,
The Historic Commission doesn't have any youth members, does it?
no.
No,
Maybe that's the best place to do
that
it.
might be the best place. to
People
do it.
on that board know him as well, I think, don't they? Some of them?
All right,
Right.
that's fine.
You want to ask?
I'll ask.
Well, I had made the comment during the interview as well, but yeah, it's a good thing to ask.
Okay, so now we've only added one more person, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
Brian Brockhausen with Historic Preservation. Okay, so are we ready to move on? We're way behind schedule.
So could you go through and tell us where the gaps are?
Okay.
Or,
There is an alternate member missing on code enforcement, alternate on cultural arts.
Yep.
I don't have anything at firefighters pension board, but that
Yeah,
could be filled in.
Okay.
We
Potential
have-
alternate on ACE as well. You don't have that
with
for
Judith
sure
Dunlop
filled.
possibly
Oh,
as
yeah,
a,
yeah.
Possible,
Judith
right.
Dunlop possible. I put a question mark there.
Okay.
The Historic Preservation Commission, we're still missing a member.
Two.
And it- can-
oh, I thought we had.
Two.
We put Cash Parker and Brian Brockhausen there.
You put
thought-
Cash Parker on there? Okay.
Parks and Rec, Amber Christopher and Kate Teasdale. Planning and Zoning, Judy Brown and Carolyn Marshall. Police Pension, Cash Parker. Public Library, Amy. Okay, so there's
So
two.
there's two openings there.
Two openings in the Public Library Board.
Yep.
There are no openings in Transportation Advisory, and there's one alternate missing in Urban Renewal Authority.
Will we have a problem with the quorum on the library board if we don't fill those two? Do you know?
Let me look.
I know that we were worried at the last meeting, my first meeting, they were worried, and we had enough. But, I mean, I went out the day before and the day of, and
Sorry. It's called the Public Library. You will be okay with the one person coming on.
okay.
Ideally, it would be better to have two, but you'll be okay with one.
Like, so what about putting Alex Wenzel on that? Asking him if
I
he'd
think
be
they-
willing.
They meet Tuesday?
Tuesdays, yeah, and he can do Monday and Tuesdays. I
Would you
wonder
go ahead and ask him if that
if
would
we
be
asked
I'll
him
ask
if he
him.
would do that.
Okay.
That was a Public Library Board, right?
All right.
Okay. Do we need a
Yes.
bio break? Okay, 5 minutes.
So really, you scheduled this for 15 minutes?
It took an hour and a half.
Whoa,
That wasn't realistic.
It was a rookie mistake.
Oh, you're not still a rookie.
could blame a city manager for.
Was Joe still doing this one?
I think it was all.
Easy to make it smaller, given
Well, no, you have to do
there are.
PDF.
Joe have influence on this?
The last one.
You probably
He's trying to.
Thank you.
It's just some that we don't have all the cool programs. Actually did this, I had to have it sent to my personal email, I have that. So it's just kind of funny.
Thank you.
But no, if you need anything else, holler.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be, but you already have two people from. Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm sure you actually apply too. So see you. Okay. I'll check in with her.
Oh, the lights are
I had a doctor's appointment, which was next to this place. I just went over there, and then I went next door and had lunch at the beer garden.
Oh, yeah.
Wings over the Rock.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a good job over there at Lowry with redevelopment.
They got a lot of stuff they're working on, but a lot of stuff's tore down.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a long while. Yeah, I got spoiled because I grew up in Dayton, so I used to go to the Ray Patterson one, which is just 6 giant hangars filled. It's amazing. You could spend 2 days in there.
Yeah.
I had to hustle through like the modern flight piece, and that's what I was accustomed to anyway because I was in the Air Force. I'm about F-16. No, F-15. No problem.
Well, I heard I learned there's another place down in Colorado Springs.
There is, yeah.
And, a lot of their stuff, their old planes are working.
Oh, yeah.
They're flying.
Yeah, which is neat. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I could spend hours there.
Yeah, I want to go down there and check their stuff out and see what they got.
They have like a lot of T6 warbirds, so those are pretty cool. AT6 and T6, which is pretty awesome. Especially if they probably still turn.
Yeah. This the Wings Over the Rockies. They got some neat stuff in there.
Yeah.
A little plaque on each one of them that tells the specs on them and what they did and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance and you haven't been to Ray Pat, they've done such an incredible job with historical dioramas and stuff that they have it set up where you actually start, with winged flight to start with.
Oh, yeah.
Like Leonardo da Vinci, where he's drawing the guy with the. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. You just go through, and it's just so well done. Stuff hanging on the ceiling, stuff on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was telling me about the Smithsonian.
Yeah, that's incredible too.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, they've got some really good stuff there.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Good evening.
Maybe I think maybe he's got some stuff going to keep him awake, and we need this.
No. We don't need to stay awake.
It was
We need to
putrid.
leave at a decent
It was
time.
putrid. Yeah.
We do not need to stay awake. We need to leave our meetings at a decent time.
This is going to take even longer.
What did you do?
The room was reacting.
They're working really well.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to listen to anyone since we started the.
I think
Sounds a lot better.
doesn't. They sound a lot better.
I can hear her, don't you?
No, he's not
If you keep
I don't think in my life I've seen him even smoke a cigarette.
I don't know. She said he was spitting into some cup
I
or
don't
something.
believe so. I would be very
Mayor Pro
surprised to
Tem,
hear
how
that.
are we
Honest
going
to God.
to conclude the evening by 9
How
o'clock?
could he do that for all these years and
No,
I never
I-
would know?
Through these questions.
That he did this? Honestly, I'd be surprised. I
would
truly
ask.
don't think he does.
We're not going to go real
Yeah,
deep
he
into
did.
because we have.
I like in
have
there
the rest
too.
of the week
I mean,
to
I don't
spend
think he would
with
do
each
it in a
other, so
forum
I
like
think-
that if he was going to.
No,
I absolutely agree.
Okay.
dropped it the other day. I don't know. Usually when people do that, you can tell.
Maybe I'll just
Weird. Well, as judge, he can damn well do as he pleases in his courtroom. Up to him.
That makes you a hanging judge. I'm honest to God, I'm totally.
He said
unaware of
he's
that.
never seen him.
I don't think I've seen cigarettes either.
I've sat next to her for 6 years. I've never
Yeah,
seen
I.
him, so I know he chews something.
It's
So it would probably be.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, that could work. Maybe
Poor
let's
Joe.
see.
I'd be having a talk with his
I
mama.
can be flexible too. I always work
rings
myself
around
around.
your cheek.
Rack up his
buddy.
teeth.
There.
you chop.
No, tomorrow. 5 o'clock out of the office. We might.
I'm okay coming back in the
I
afternoon.
hate doing that to you.
Or you know what I could do? And maybe I'm going to talk to Alice, and she just wants to talk to me tomorrow. Maybe I'll just come back when I need to come to you.
Give a half hour.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay,
I was not already coming back. No.
I call this meeting back to order. I have heard from several of you that we do need to finish on time. We do need to get through these questions, but we will postpone the policy discussion until next time. And I think that perhaps we can get through these questions. Does everybody have the email available?
Well, you know, you didn't send us the actual document of these in that email. You sent us your little memo to us in that email.
I didn't.
Did you send something today yet?
I did.
Oh,
Yeah, I sent it.
it's been busy.
Yeah.
Now you're okay.
Yeah, it was a synopsis of what each of us submitted.
Right, I did,
And
and I appreciated that. Councilmember Bernstein.
I really liked not all of what Linda did, because that could be going too far.
That could be
out
bad.
of the chute, you know. But I really liked the way that Councilmember Olson put that into categories like that, and then to ask the kind of follow-up questions to that. So I appreciate that you did that work, and I think, Amy, you did that too, where you kind of categorized things and put that in. One of the things I think we need to take care of first before we have the discussion is that I appreciate the information that City Manager Keck gave to us, but we're discussing the questions in public. There really isn't going to be a surprise here. So I really would like to stick to making sure that the questions, that we have some formal questions that we're doing, and that people are given the opportunity to prepare for that. I have probably sat with just as many different council people as Joe did. I haven't counted it all up yet. It might make me sad, I don't know. But even given the information ahead of time, I think it is very telling the kind of research that somebody does and what they can come to the table with. And I would like to make sure that the questions that we decide on are public and made available to the candidates. That does not stop in a 45-minute or an hour interview, that we're going to have questions that come up as a result of the conversation that's happening or information that the candidate brings up at the time. There's going to be other things that come up that are just a natural progression of that conversation. But I think just by the nature of that, and City Manager Keck is correct, in a private hire, more than likely you don't have that, although I have seen, and I think his was one where you have some questions that are made available, but that we make the questions public, and then understand that each of us are probably going to have some question that pops up during that interview that we're going to ask. We are not bound just by the questions that are there, but by the nature of it, it's a public official. We cannot do these secretly. Period. We can't go into executive session and come up with anything on an elected official, in my opinion. That's my reading of it. So since we've decided to make this open and transparent, and we're discussing the questions in open, transparent, not to even have the illusion that somehow we're making the questions would ever be private.
Okay, any other thoughts on that? Councilmember
I don't. I like the idea of somebody walking in cold to the questions, but I agree, even beyond this, if I was going on the third night to interview with us, I would certainly be there the first night to see what people are saying and how they're answering the questions. So I think regardless, people are going to realize what those questions are. And let's say that person who's interviewing the third night was there to catch the questions on the first night. I think that's a major, major advantage for that third night person and disadvantage for that first night person. So I like the idea of the cold questions, but I'm not sure how we pull it off without some sort of really secretive process.
You can't,
I just don't think we can.
And it's illegal.
Nor should we do it.
So I don't think we can.
Sure.
Okay. I just think that the executive session speaks to an elected official, and so it kind of ties our hands on it.
Okay, Councilmember Olson.
I think Martinez was first.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I think I actually like the applicant coming in cold to the questions, not knowing. I think if they want to be here and listen to our meetings and listen to the other applicant interviews, that's to their advantage. If they want to do that homework and spend the time to do that, I think that's up to them. But I don't think we need to send them a list of questions in advance.
Councilmember Olson?
I've been really trying to figure this one out because I do a lot of interviewing and of candidates for things, and I do give them a basic set of some questions, and then I ask a lot of other things as well. So the question is how much time. We just did 10-minute interviews of board and commission folks and used 6 or 7 questions too. So my hunch is that we will have time for more, but it depends on how we run the meeting and how, if we keep it going in a way that could get at more, so that there are some other questions to probe into their materials that they've submitted. So
That's
having
why I
not
liked
looked
your
at
format.
those,
Like the bulk is that we use that
Yeah,
as
so-
if it's like the resume,
Yeah.
these set questions, and then we're each going to have questions
yeah,
that
I
come out of
couldn't
that.
look at all 21 without categorizing them, and I thought, and because there's so many issues in here, that I thought they're great issues, but can we ask every single one of these issues in this 40? Are we saying 45 minutes now?
I think we're saying 45 minutes, otherwise it's going to get really late, especially
For the last
tomorrow.
ones,
Yeah,
yeah.
especially tomorrow, because we have the meet and greet from 6 to 7, and then we have 3 interviews after that.
Yeah, so I would prefer to maybe have the surprise question be that, there are a number of issues coming up in the city, and we're going to let you talk about 2, or we pick 2 and ask them that night, and it's different for every person, and we just see how they respond on the fly with some of the, you two have just come off an election where you had to work your feet off, and and it's got to be hard to be coming into this thinking, oh my goodness, 45 minutes and they're going to make a decision on someone, and we haven't really given them an opportunity to tell a lot about themselves yet, but how can we make the best use of that? So I would be in favor of giving categories with some questions that probably could get asked under each, and then do what we did at the board and commission meetings where we start to probe further. But I think getting into their, we saw one of these applications by accident, right?
Yes.
And
At the beginning of it, yeah.
at the beginning of it, so they're going to all be different.
The best
Right,
laid
right.
plans, yeah.
That's going to be helpful.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
I do want to ask a question, though. Are the categories that I came up with, those were what I thought coded those particular questions. Do you see other missing categories that we're not asking that we need to be? The district specific was the only thing that I saw missing.
And actually, I like that. I really did like how you did categorize it. Then I liked your examples of them. But I also did like that District 1 specific question, because I think that is important. That is important.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you. Councilmember Wink, do you want to weigh in? Or did you and I missed it? On questions whether to make them public or...
Sure. I too feel that if it would be absolutely best to share perhaps categories to give some information. We already, I believe, we said we would share something.
Yes.
So I think categories of questions is a good way. I too have been working for many years in universities, private sector, and I've interviewed a lot of individuals. I've never shared questions or seen questions shared, so a little different experience than Councilmember Olton, which is fine. We have different experiences. My preference is, sorry, did you have something to say?
No, you have the floor.
No, just agreeing
My
with you.
preference is to not share the questions ahead of time, and I feel strongly about that. So again, though, it's a little complicated to do, as Councilmember Questa and maybe several others have mentioned. So I do think the idea of the categories is good. Also, Councilmember Martinez, what was your suggestion again? Would you kindly reiterate what you stated, because I liked the sound of that, but then after that, Member Olson shared the categories. You had a very fine suggestion, I think. So
I don't know. I
I know,
said
I
I don't
hate
want
to
to
have a
share them.
brain-
I think it's,
Yeah.
well, I said I think it's helpful if they come in cold, but it's up
Right.
to the applicants if they want to watch
Right.
the discussion.
Should they
and their-
want,
their
right, and
diligence.
that's
Yeah.
to their advantage if they wanted to come in. Good.
Right, that is to their advantage. And how I would like to weigh in on this is, I do feel that we did have consensus before to make them public. They're going to be public anyway. So, I mean, the truth is, and part of this discussion probably needs to go to the fact that if, were we going to record them and not live stream them? And I think if everyone has the questions in the categories, I mean, and I like the specific questions, and there were other ones. I marked some of these specific questions that all of you put fit in the same categories that you had put in here, and there's a lot of the same questions.
Right, you could just ask them
too.
differently.
Right, and I feel like if we came up with 5 or 6 questions, I really liked how well the discussion, the interviews went with boards and commissions. Since we've been on council, that is the best interviews I think that we've had because of the follow-up questions, and we did only have 10 minutes. If we have 6 questions and that allows 5 minutes for every question, which is 30 minutes, then we could have them do an opening statement. We could ask a question at the end like you suggested, or we could, I mean, in the conversation, other questions came up. And so I don't think we're giving away anything. I mean, the truth is, when we sit on council, we get a packet every week. We don't come in and cold turkey have to come up with the information that we're going to discuss. We have the information ahead of time. So I think we could come up with questions that fit in these categories and that are general questions. So I think we can move ahead with that. I think we have consensus.
Can you recap that for me again, so how that would look? We would come to 5 questions?
We would come probably to 6, probably 6 questions out of all of these questions that were in the email, and that cover each different category. And then perhaps how we would run this, and we need to talk about this. We can do this right now, or we can do it later. Give them an opportunity to make an opening statement to us, then go into our questions, and then perhaps more questions would arise from the interview, like happens at the board and commission interviews.
We would only have 6, similar to what Linda kind of put out there. We have the 6, we have a series of questions that they know are going to be asked, and then we are able to, tell something about themselves, the 6 questions they know are going to be asked, and then that still allows us to ask other questions that
nobody
allow you to
knows
have
because it came up.
My concern is that the whole conversation before went around to this not gotcha thing. I mean, we even had debates this last time where people were very insistent that questions be given to candidates ahead of time, which isn't unreasonable. I mean, the paper gives all of the people the same questions.
Right.
They have time to think about it, write their answers, and that's how the public has generally, for decades, made decisions. So I don't think having like the style that you kind of, I think, proposed, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, was about giving some questions at a time that they can prepare so we can see some kind of preparation and what that is, and then allowing each of us to ask a question that is more cold turkey that you think but isn't prepared, so that it may just spring out of that conversation and it may not be consistent with each person, but something that we see and what's going on. So I thought that's kind of where we were at.
Okay, all right.
If I may recap one more time.
Go ahead.
So opening statement, 6 questions that we all agree on that will be released. Everybody will have those in advance, and then whatever follow-up questions just come organically from the
Right, or
answers we
questions
got
that
from
they
the
would actually have for us that we didn't ask.
I had one at the end of mine said, do you have a question we haven't asked you that you wish we had? I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like we've come full circle here. So now we're back at releasing the questions prior. That's really the
Right.
debate.
Not all of them, just
The
a
first
set
6.
of questions, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Wink. Did you have something to say?
It was, thank you. It was prior to the confirmation that we would have an additional set of questions. I believed 6 was far too few, but it's 6 plus, so I'm fine. That's all that
Okay,
was about.
that answered your
Yep,
question.
I'm great.
So that's okay.
Thank you.
And one more thing that that when I do give out questions, and you'll see the style that I created with these is asking them to tell their story, their narrative. They've got to give us examples. If they can't give us examples of it, then they're just saying what all of us would say, like, "Oh yeah, I'm really great on teams." Well, give us an example where you had to work through something that was difficult, and tell us about it. How did it go? And they don't have to have a perfect ending to the story in my mind, but that they understand that there's conflict and they know what their strengths and weaknesses are in it. And I mean, when people can articulate who they are and how they work, that's what I'm interested in. And if they start to parrot what other people said the night before, that tells me a lot too. So I don't worry about people, but then I'm a bit intuitive too. And
Actually, she's right. If they
Picking
parrot
people.
something just because they thought it sounded good, maybe we didn't think it sounded as
Right.
good as they thought it.
Right.
So they can get in trouble
but
that way.
then the
So
other
that's
part
a
of it
good
is in not releasing them, which does then make me nervous, is that there are some people who are much better at preparing than others, and yet they might be really good on council. And I hate to, I don't know, however we ended up with who's when and where. The last person is both advantaged and disadvantaged if they don't know what they were. I mean, the first person is, and so it's unfair to the first person in some way, the very first person, and then the last person, it's not. So I just think we got to be as fair as we can.
I think it is.
Well, I think we can be fair as we can.
No, I mean, if we're
Right.
telling them this, if
Right.
we're not going to
But,
tell them the 6, that worries me a little bit because of that.
Right. In my opinion, though, we, all 6 of us, evaluate different things.
Right.
And so one person may think one person is prepared, but maybe 4 of the rest of us didn't necessarily pick up on that. We picked up on something else.
Yeah.
So
I do think that then the next stage, once we've decided this, is how are we going to
Decide.
make some decisions, which I think Councilmember Wink did some great work on the last thing with the boards and commissions, and that's why I wanted to take a look at her grid to see, okay, how did you do this? Because it might be helpful in this decision-making process. So.
Jackie did print it out, by the way.
Okay.
I'm glad you alluded to that, and I was curious about that as well. It's just functionally, how does that look the night that we're going to select a council person? And maybe this is a decision for another time, but will it be somebody will motion to elect one of the 9, and then we'll get a second, and then we'll take a vote?
this is what I believe. Councilmember Barentine actually
Thank
has
you.
been through 3 times when a council member has been selected. Does the conversation
It's
go?
my third.
Wait a minute.
Mike Yuracek,
And then Olga.
and this is the
Oh,
third.
this is your 3rd time, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, you're not missing
You better
another.
not stay on too long. One of us is going to have something bad happen. We're good.
my feeling was, and I don't know, we can talk about this right now, council will have the discussion on the dais. Is that?
Did we do it legally either of the times before? No, we did it in executive session, which I come to understand that is not legal. You cannot discuss an elected official or making this decision out of the public purview. It is expressly prohibited. Now, we did it with the best of intentions. We didn't mean to do it, but
Sure you meant
we're all,
to protect
everybody's
the people
older and
who
wiser
apply.
now, so, and we had legal advice at the time, so I'm going to blame the attorney. Yeah, that's where I'm going to go.
She just agreed with you.
Yeah, so we have a better attorney now.
So, and what I'm saying, I guess, when you're in a public office, you're putting yourself out there, and so that's a chance that you're taking.
But that's the reason why, I mean, I agree, and that's the reason why I think we need some sort of decision-making grid so we can all be articulate and be careful. And we're going to try to be, but it's going to be hard to do that without some, like, what are the categories we're all trying to use? And then there's some uniquenesses that each of us will pick up on, like you noted, that we're all going to come up with something that's different, on something that's going to catch us with someone versus another. I mean, we did that with the city manager and with the city attorney. We all have different opinions about what. So, but I think there should be a set of some things we're all trying to see. Maybe it's the categories that are maybe we rate by personal competencies, vision, and motivation, whatever the categories are. I don't know what you were using a 5-point scale or something?
Yeah, so what I did was actually extremely close to what Councilmember Olson, which is almost the same thing as what I presented for the District 1 candidate categories and questions. But what Councilmember Olson had, it's just that with categories, and I have the candidates in each column. You have the category and the questions beneath each category there, and it's a 5-point scale, and I have the scale defined. And look at the average, look at the total, the sum and the average. And by no means is the quantitative result of it the only consideration for making our decision, but we have something numerical and something quantitative to help us justify our discussion after. It's an art and a science. So,
But it's also
qualitatively,
it's also subjective, correct? Because each one of us will evaluate.
absolutely.
Okay.
But I would like to look at whatever tool we can each access.
Yeah, I would too. I think it would really help me through this decision-making process. I haven't been through selecting a council person before, and obviously our new members haven't either. So I think it would really help me, even just for myself as I'm going through it, through the interviews. Is there a way you can share that with us,
She had
Cheryl?
copies, me.
I mean, like electronically.
make it
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It is on a Google Drive, but I can download it as a PDF and share it. It won't be
Sure, whatever.
so I mean, you can't play with it at that point, but would that suffice?
Just to get an idea of like
Yep,
how,
I
yeah,
will
because
do
I
that.
saw it. You
Each
showed it to
time
me. I
was
think
so
it's really
unique.
great,
I
but
think this would
I just
help.
want to see like the categories that you had and
Okay.
things like that. So I think that would help me.
Sure.
It doesn't make me experience. One died, one went to jail. It doesn't give me experience at it. I just went through it enough to know that, maybe we shouldn't have done it the way we did it. But each time is so unique that any tool that we could have to help us get through, I think would be very.
Well, and in my past on here, we've never used tools to really help us very well. We've been adverse to them almost. It's like, why? This helps you make decisions a whole lot. But you still can have a qualitative internal response, but I just think it'd be helpful.
Okay, so.
All right, it
is
doesn't shackle
okay
you.
for that to be distributed?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think I'm confused. Did you say that you posted it already?
No.
She printed it.
She printed
Printed it.
Printed it.
Okay,
I said-
sorry. I'm
Cheryl
looking in my
said she
email.
printed it.
Nothing's coming.
Okay.
Wait for it.
So with that said, let's move on because, Councilmember Quest.
Thank you. And I feel like I am coming back to this, so I appreciate you guys' patience. I don't want to fumble through this. These are 9 people. I'm sure their hopes will be into this, and I want to be very respectful of everybody when we get up there. Will we evaluate each person? We'll have 9 coming before us. Will we go through each name individually? Will we then make a motion? Somebody will just lead with of the 9. I liked this person the most. I motion to elect. Somebody seconds. Then we take a vote from there. If they don't get the needed 4, and then we could have a split. Do you know what happens in case it was? I really don't want to fumble through it, so I'd like to have as much of the mechanics worked out in advance as we can.
Okay. City Attorney.
By charter, the way that an individual is appointed follows almost identically state law. The difference is that the City of Inglewood charter only allows the City Council 30 days to make the decision. 30 days basically starting tomorrow. If at the end of 30 days the council cannot select someone by majority, it goes to special election.
Question. Are you done?
I don't
Keep
think
going.
that answered his.
So if we do have a split, so if we have a split, I guess we just kind of talk through it. We try and get through it up there. Otherwise, after 30, we can't reach a conclusion. 30 days passes, we go to special election.
When we did Woodward, what happened was we had everybody, I think, over 20 people at that time. I mean, there were a
We had
ton
a
of
lot.
people, a lot.
We had a lot.
And so what Doug Garrett, who was mayor at the time, asked everybody to go ahead and put in their top 5 choices. I don't know whether that's something Mayor Pro Tem would like to consider. I don't know. I think that we will have a better idea after we are done interviewing to maybe make some of those suggestions. But I think we have to go through the interview process first. And like with the boards and commissions, I think we'll have a better feel for it.
Now, we don't have a meeting, though, between the end of those interviews and the vote, do we?
Correct.
Correct. Unless for some reason we would choose not to vote that time. But that will come up.
Which is what I was going to, I'm really glad that you're asking these questions because I do think we should think about it. We do have 30 days. I would prefer to agree tonight just by generality saying let's really try to figure it out. And if we can't get a consensus that night, figure out, do we need another week to think this through, to mull over what other people thought about and reconsider, but try and get it down to at least a top three, or maybe, you know, we'd be willing to trade people around in our minds and then come back. I mean, we do have 30 days, but that we got to get it done then, and if it doesn't, then it goes to vote.
But you were correct, there was the push to go ahead and make sure that it was on the 16th.
Right.
It was not
Right.
necessarily something that we agreed to, we just knew we could do.
Right.
So if it's something where there has to be some kind of discussion in order to make sure that this is as transparent as possible, because I don't want anybody to think that it's getting picked behind.
Right.
The worst thing we can
Right.
do is
It
give
would
the
be,
impression
it would be like in a
that-
public hearing, it's ex parte, no conversation.
But I don't want, it's not for our convenience. I'm concerned that the public, if they think that we've had too many conversations behind closed doors and come up with somebody, then that really truly is not fairness. Maybe we do need to have some opportunity to come together as a body and have a discussion. And I don't know if we have an opportunity for study session that
The second
night.
part I wanted to suggest would be, could we have, and I didn't know what the order of that evening is, but could we have a study session for consensus building that at least gets it to some place where we can vote rather than doing it up? Is that possible to do in a study session at maybe 5:30 that afternoon for an hour and a half before we then say, okay, we're going to have to decide. Is that possible?
City
Is it
manager.
legal?
It certainly would be plausible. The only item that we put on for the study session on the 16th at this point was to review the fees. However, we believe that, I just got done looking at several of all 30 of the fees that were proposed to change. There's a sheet of paper for each one of them. Talks about methodology and all that. I think you're going to have enough information from that to be able to go into the business meeting, and if you have questions, then to pull one of those out and say, can we discuss this before adopting that fee resolution? So we could, in theory, repurpose the time that was going to be used in the hour ahead of time, or like you said, maybe 5:30, for you to deliberate on the 16th.
Could we make the fee schedule information is public?
Yes. It'll be in the packet.
And that sheet, what you just described, is public, right?
Correct.
If we could have that provided to us as soon as possible?
Yeah, matter of fact, I can...
And then we could review it, and then if we had questions, maybe ask, because that's less of a problem on transparency.
Right.
If it's already out there and transparent, all of the documentation on why we're doing that, then I would like to have that, and maybe that would make that very short, or we could just do it on the dais kind of thing and open it up for what Councilmember Olson is suggesting.
Do you think that's the only item on the
That was
regular?
the only item on the study session.
But what's on the regular?
Like
The other night, we thought it was going to be quick.
That fluctuates. On the regular meeting, you do have the first reading of the PUD ordinance on Pearl. That's just a reading.
I know.
And then the fees ordinance.
That's it?
I'd have to look again. It changes. I think there
Because
may
that
be
would help.
Yeah, it's fairly skinny, but again, I think your idea and thought of having a maybe study session is more functional than doing it on the dais.
And
There is the possibility, she's correct, there is the possibility we could be tied.
Correct.
And if that's going to happen, I would rather that we came to understand that in a study session
Yeah.
and gave ourselves more time if we needed it to potentially come out of any potential gridlock if that happens.
Yeah.
I don't know all the people that are run.
Sure.
But obviously, you're right, it could. And if that's the case and we go, maybe we need a little more time,
Yeah.
then
Can I
we
scare
would
you a little
not,
bit more?
yeah,
we wouldn't put anybody in.
yeah.
As
go
a point of
ahead.
information, we've already looked at what a special election would cost is $15,000.
Oh, it's not as much as I thought.
Well, it's still a lot of money.
thought it was
I
30.
would want to avoid that, but
So-
I don't think we're using these. But I think we're going to need as much time as possible in a study session. I mean, think about tonight. We talked about filling board and commission seats, and it took an hour and a half. So I think, and this is really, really important. So I think we're going to need, at a minimum, an hour and a half to discuss amongst ourselves.
So you're talking
before we
5:30?
5:30.
I think we might even need more time than that. I don't know, but I think it's important enough to dedicate at least a whole study session. It took us an hour and a half to go through these board and commission appointments.
So you want to start at 5 or 5:30? What would you want to do?
I don't think, I'll try and do it, but.
And I don't know that it's going to happen in one night.
I will never
What if we
teach
did
another
decide-
Tuesday
We're
night.
going to have less applicants than we did for the board and commission.
Yeah.
Less people, so.
It is
that
also a
makes-
totally different role, though.
I
Right.
know, it is.
Yeah.
It's fewer
And we-
individuals, but it's a much more robust
It's a bigger
role.
deal.
It's
And we could place all of them. It's not, we
Yeah.
can't place all
Oh,
these.
we're only going to place one.
So we have to
Right,
only
it's gonna
one.
be, it's.
So what time do you guys want to meet then? What would you think? I mean, Amy's probably right, an hour and a half.
At least.
Then when do you want to come?
Well, can our regular meeting start at 7:30?
For one night?
I can't do that now.
No.
You would have been able to do that if you would have announced that last
Previous.
business meeting,
Oh,
but you can't according to your charter now.
my students will love me.
I'll let
Well, 5:30 still gives us an hour and a half.
5:30, that gives us an hour and a half. Will that work for everyone?
If
I
you
think-
think,
I
if you
bet
think
we'll
we
need more
need
than
two,
that, but
then
I
let's do
think-
5. I
It'll
will
be
make
tough
it
for me,
figure-
too.
I'll figure it out. I will never
Will
teach on
5
Tuesday
work
again.
for?
At 4 to 6, I'm changing my schedule.
Why is
I
it
think I'm going to be
Tuesday?
the one abusing point of
I have
information.
one class,
Sorry.
4 to
As a
6,
point of
I support
information,
only.
let's say we're all here by 5, and we give it our best shot, and we're just feeling rushed, and it's certainly a decision we don't want to rush into. What if we did not elect somebody that night? We still have our 30 days, so that would not be an issue, and we would just vote accordingly.
no.
We would have a quorum.
You have 21 days.
21 days at that point,
But
but
we
still
would
enough
have
to
a
get us
second.
to our next meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yes?
It
It would
would.
ha- it probably
It
have to
would.
be the next
First
council
week in
meeting.
The
February.
next normal council meeting.
Or a special meeting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh,
Which I'm fine with either one.
Okay.
But I
If-
think
if
we
we
can
need
probably do it. I mean, if there's a problem, and she's right, we should know. We should have some idea before we go into whether we're going to end up in a situation.
Okay, Councilmember Wink.
Thank you. Should we find we would like to call a special meeting, if we don't come to some consensus or a decision with which we're comfortable next week, how far in advance do we need to have scheduled such a special meeting?
Good question.
24 hours, good, is that correct?
You have to have notice. I'll let the attorney.
There has to be enough notice time, so typically we'd like the minimum of 48 hours.
I remember reading that.
But by law, it's
So-
only 24.
Yeah, that's true, but to get our notice up so nobody's questioning, are we hiding anything, we would really...
You would prefer 48,
Yeah.
but we can do
that.
this.
So then we're good. I think that's a nice plan. Then we meet for 2 hours if we can, and if we don't come to a decision, then we have more than enough time to call a special meeting and provide our 48 hours of diligence.
Well, and actually, the truth is, we can go to the 5th of February, and we
Correct.
still could call a special meeting 48 hours after that, or no?
Yeah, you'd be tight, but you could do it. And the mayor, according to your charter, has the authority to call a special meeting. So to have to do that, make that announcement at the 16th, though.
Okay.
You have to do it at a regular meeting.
But by that time, we'll know if we have a study session like what they've.
Correct.
Okay.
What Councilmember Martinez and Councilmember Olson are suggesting, I think, are really a good idea. So we're going to meet at 5 or 5:30.
It'll be tough, but we'll make it work. But I think it deserves the time
Students are
and
gonna
attention.
love
Okay,
me.
somebody just give a time, because I got to write it down.
5.
So we're
Will you
meeting
be
at
able to
5
make
o'clock on the
You bet.
16th.
I'll make time. I think 5:30, we're just dooming ourselves. There's
I do
don't think it's
too.
Not enough time.
I'd prefer 5:30, but I think you're right, 5 needs to probably be it.
All right, 5 o'clock.
Got it.
All right, so now, back to the questions.
I have one other
Oh,
thing
yeah.
I want to
Okay.
say on the questions. I don't know if, I guess, one suggestion is instead of sending actual questions, could we just send topics, like how Councilmember Olson broke it out and say, we're going to ask you questions on these topics, but not give the actual questions?
For the 6th?
We
Yeah.
did, with all due respect, we just spent a lot of time talking about this, and I thought we came to
We
consensus. that
didn't. Not everyone was.
I know not everybody wants it, but I thought we came to an agreement that we were going to give 6 questions, and that we also were going to have questions that they didn't know about. We're doing the best of both worlds.
Not
So we
everybody.
can't have
I
everything.
think you need to have us weigh in on it.
Okay.
Maybe do round robin or
I will
something.
go in, I thought we had
She did.
consensus already on that
Yes.
too, but I will have us weigh in. So,
Thank you.
Councilmember Wink, what is your preference on giving the 6 questions ahead of time? the candidates.
Or what you suggested, is it, so?
So, as I shared previously, my preference is not to share questions ahead of time. I think sharing the categories of what we would share would be ideal. These individuals are intelligent. They're going to carry great weight. I think it's fine to share. I think most people will have an idea anyway.
Okay.
I mean, I could go either way, but I think my preference would be not to share the questions. Share categories, share enough such that they understand how to prepare themselves. I think they should know what each category indicates in terms of the work necessary to be prepared and appear cogent. And, yeah, that's my preference.
Okay.
I agree with the way that Sacred Grace did their debate, and I agree with the candidates who agreed to do that and liked it, that they had the questions ahead of time, had the opportunity to prepare, and then also have, which that debate didn't have, we are able to go ahead and ask questions that will go ahead and suffice for whatever cold deal that we have. None of us, I don't understand the desire to go ahead and see how do they do on the fly without it. None of us come to any of these meetings without knowing what we're going to discuss. Having an opportunity to prepare, and it's very obvious to a lot of people when we prepare and when we don't prepare as council. And then discussions come up and we have questions that other people ask that somebody else wasn't prepared for. So I think that that's as close to the format of reality as we can. I think I would like to see some example of the opportunity for them to come prepared and see what that research looks like when they have the opportunity. I don't want the whole thing to be off the cuff. And I also don't want to stop anybody from asking questions that arise from what's going on that they may not be prepared for. So I would like to have both.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Preston?
I'm not a life is fair guy by any means, but I do think it is difficult trying to keep them unreleased. And then that first person who goes first on the first night does not have the same advantage that the person who goes on the third night. And I think that may come back to haunt us. I'm not entirely sure. Beyond that, so we would have the opening statement, the 6 predetermined questions that would be released publicly, and then it's just a firing squad from there. We can just jump in as we see fit. I think
a little harsh.
I think Councilmember Barrington gets the real bullets in the firing squad too. But from there, it is just.
Do you
we
think
just
it'll
jump
lay
in.
on my conscience?
We will see.
No.
We'll see. And so that's what we're
Okay.
determining now.
All right. Thank you. Yes, that's what we're determining.
Yes.
Councilmember.
I don't have trouble giving them to them, and I think we'll have enough time to ask them questions that are going to be off the cuff. They're going to be about their stuff. And I would rather see someone at their very best and see what that very best looks like compared to one another than at fumbling. And I guess it's because it's an area that not everybody's going to be familiar with. They're going to have to work hard to get good at it. So it doesn't worry me as long as we're asking these questions of give me your example, not someone else's or what you think you would do, but what have you done in the past? So,
Okay,
I don't mind sharing them.
I'm going to weigh in then. I am in favor of that also, and so I believe we have consensus to come up with 6 questions to give them ahead of time, and then there will be questions off the cuff. So let's move on to the questions now. And do we want to start with the grid that Councilmember Olson gave us of the topics?
I'm sorry. This is in our possession now.
Huh?
The grid.
That-
The grid
yes.
is in our possession.
You got it
Member
sent
Quest, I
email.
emailed that out earlier today.
Jump on it. Thank you.
Yes, that, if you just search for my name, I think I sent out at 11:08 a.m.
Very good. Thank you.
For what?
7 on mine.
Oh, the questions.
11:07.
Oh, the
Yes,
questions. I was
it was.
thinking the
Pretty
grid.
good.
It was.
Oh, the
Councilmember
email-
Wing's
the
grid.
email for
That
the
I've got in front of
questions.
me.
Because
Okay,
I went
gotcha.
to email the stuff out, and I saw that, and I go, I'm going with Linda's stuff.
There you go.
I'm not going to.
Yeah. So in there, in the middle, you see that she has the 6 categories of personal competencies and vision motivation, understanding of city and personal goals and vision. I'll send this to you candidates so you don't have to write so fast. Decision-making, handling conflict, understanding city and District 1 council role, issues and demonstration of learning about issues, and then personal character and competencies.
they could have quorum requested it.
Yeah, but you know what? I'd sit on it for 48 hours, so they wouldn't get it till Friday. So.
Oh,
It's all
we
right.
don't play like that. Come on.
No, we
I thought you
don't.
had 72.
Might be hard to
Public
come
Can't
by,
they get you
right?
to Monday?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so, did anybody pick out specific questions? I mean, I really liked Linda's questions as well.
There were a lot under each, so it's not just like one question, you know. So
Right.
Just need to
Well,
feel good
right.
about that, but
5 minutes.
And I think the reason I liked it was because of a lot of the give us an example kind of thing, and because nobody can give somebody else's example.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work. So I think that does say a lot about somebody. So I kind of like I liked the ones that you put in. I kind of threw out the other list, and I liked the ones and then the categories. So.
Well, and like on number 4, I actually put a star by this one. The actual question, describe what you think are the key responsibilities of the council role in representing District 1. What kind of time do you think it would take, and how would you utilize your time to understand and represent that district well?
that's a lot in one.
Yeah, well, it's a
good question, isn't it?
research one. It's a research one. So.
But it gives specific direction
It does.
in preparing for that question, too,
That's,
though.
like, they're going to have to go figure out what the district wants and what their needs are if they're not as familiar with it as somebody who's campaigned and walked doors all, you know, for months. So, and so they're going to have to figure that out and find out how they want to do that. It's going to take time.
Okay, I vote for that question.
Okay,
I'm good with
number
all those
4.
questions.
I actually starred 4, 5, and 7, the actual questions that were under those. Well, number 7 wasn't under a topic, it was.
Yeah, it was kind of a.
What question we have not asked?
I just always
that you
ask
wish
that.
we had?
It usually produces very interesting things, and sometimes people say nothing. So, and that's good to know too.
I think
did
it
have
worked well
another
on the
one for
boards and
6, by the
commissions.
way. I had another one for 6 that was, what would 2 or 3 of your best friends tell you would be your greatest strengths and weaknesses? But that's kind of, you know, I don't know. Or people that know you, people who work with you. But
I do think there's some specific questions under some of the other council members,
yeah, that could fit
that could fit on,
in categories. I just can't read them all.
any,
I can ask somebody about their garden and probably start to come out. I mean, just like what she's talking about. If you get some open-ended questions, I'm good. So I am not as on the dot and T kind of thing. I like the way that got put together. So I kind of like the categories. And just let's pick 6 questions that we can ask them so that they can research, because it's the research piece of it that I'm interested in seeing how they do it and what comes in. That's why I really like the question about District 1. What do you think are the issues that, I mean, I really like that. I hope that that's one of the 6 that we give them to research and come back with on what they're doing. So we only got 5 more to go. I mean, if everybody else thinks
Councilmember
that's at
Wink,
least
do
one
you
of the
have-
6.
What do any of you, with what you submitted, do you want to see one of your questions embedded in this, or the
I think it's
category different?
I think it's important that budget gets touched on. I think that that's done in 5, although they could potentially dodge it and go with one of the other. They could go with homelessness and rising housing costs or something like that. So I do think budget, just because it is so critical. I don't see how somebody could navigate your 6 questions without having to touch on budget, where they think it's going, revenues versus expenditures, et cetera. So that's the big one for me, is just that we touch on budget. This is kind of the balance too. I kind of like things that are more geared towards city issues than who are you as a person, although I know who are you as a person is important as well. And there's a fair amount of those. So I do kind of like things that specifically get into the nuts and bolts of the city. Now, I also know we don't want to do very specific, what are your thoughts on ADUs or something of that matter. But kind of the broader context of where do you see budget.
Did you think that first question was good? Like the
I do, because
district?
you know what? At the end of the day, this is a District 1 member. They should address that. when I was knocking doors not too long ago, there were things very specific to that district that came up, and that I think will say a lot about that person. That gets into the research component of it as well. That's where they're going to have to do their homework, and I think we'll know pretty quickly if they've done their homework on that one. If it's just the broad, I think you give very broad answers there, and get by, but without being really well researched.
They will not get by. We're sitting them, they're with them, and we're looking at them going, you can't get by with that. I mean, we are going to be able to look at them and go.
I'm concerned about
Councilmember Olson.
the generic stuff.
I get your issue thing, and that's what a campaign's all about.
Sure.
I don't see how we're going to do that in 45 minutes. So I kind of gave up on that, and that's why when I went through this, I think one thing about issues and let them talk to two, and if we want to say one of them is the budget, and then pick a second one, that way I would be fine with that as well. I'm concerned that, I'm going to be really frank with you. Even in the campaigning, you're making really general comments that don't tell me where you are either way either. And I think, so what is it going to help us with? I think let's get at what have you done in the past that help you problem solve that? Like something that you had a big challenge, or this is the biggest challenge we've been working on for the history of the city. So, we're always going to have to deal with it. How are we going to do this unless we win the lotto? We all should play.
And then actually, would that maybe, his question come up under question number 2, what do you think the city does well,
Yes.
or its assets, what do you think could be improved? Do you have particular goals based on these observations?
You would get some issues out of that, I think. That would
Would hope so.
Hopefully they would.
The only
if they
thing
don't, you wonder what they're going to say.
Yeah, and if all 9 of them don't, then there's problems.
You did remind me of one question, and I would like to stay away from anything that pits anybody from making an evaluation of the previous council or this council. So I just don't want things phrased like, what do you think we could be doing better? Because I don't want anybody thinking that if they go, hey, I'm going to tell you where you're going wrong, or I'm going to tell you you're all perfect, and that just entices somebody too. So we could just end the question like, and some of them the question could have just been ended with before, that this council could do better or not. There's a question prior to that happening. And the other thing was, there was a question in there that I read about how do you think the budget ought to go? Like, should it be revenues and expense? That's all written in the charter. So I'm not asking, I don't want somebody to start making a decision about how they want to do budgeting. There are certain requirements that we have to meet. So I don't want anything that pits it where there's already a charter requirement in there. Because then we're changing policy or we're asking them to hone in on that. So I would kind of like to stay away from that kind of thing.
I think that's indicative of research, though, no? Isn't that indicative of research?
No, we're not
as
doing
well,
a trick question.
I don't think that's necessarily a trick question. Let's see what
All
they
right,
say.
let's go. Actually, I did like Councilmember Wink's question number 7, which fits into, it's very similar to the question that Councilmember Olson asked. What do you believe are the responsibilities and time commitment that come with holding a position on the city council? And it really is the same question.
But more clear.
Yeah.
We'll use it.
So, and then I also starred this one under Councilmember Wink under passion for the mission. What do you do specifically to model energy, enthusiasm, competence, commitment, and a hardworking attitude toward others? There are a lot of questions that each individual asks that fit into this model. I believe. Councilmember Cuesta, I like number 7 also. Council is frequent study sessions, special meetings, and board commitments in addition to twice monthly regular council meetings. Some meetings stretch well past midnight. Please describe your commitment to such
You had one so far.
I think it'll be. I doubt that's the last one. And I think that
I'm just still waiting to see if we got one question down yet.
I thought we had 5. Go ahead, excuse me.
Yeah. So that fits in here also. I guess what I'm saying is we've all asked similar questions. I think if we go with one set, when we start asking questions, the extra questions that will come up in the interview, I think that they could fit in. Or, when I think we should each choose, Councilmember Olson.
I think you're getting at something. Keep going.
That each council member should choose one question of this set that we ask you ask it in your own words, and then more questions may follow because of the response.
I think that's a good idea. I think we can add in there.
And those are the 6 questions that we will make public that we will be asking.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
I mean, our Councilmember Martinez.
But then I thought we said we're also going to ask other ones that we aren't.
Yes,
Just follow.
yes,
Yeah, you can.
yes.
I pick her question. My question is her question about District 1. That's mine.
And I guess on that
I
note,
know, well,
So, okay, Councilmember.
So what I'm worried about is asking people questions that don't get them to give us demonstrated abilities or past experience where they've done something. That's what I'm most concerned about. Other than that, I think if they sort of fit in these categories, I'm fine with them. I really am. I think if you ask a person, how do you, maybe you have a way, Councilmember Wink, to ask this that's a little different that we can tweak it, but ask a person, how do you show your energy? Like, give us a situation that was long-term and grueling and tell us about how you sustain energy and show your energy through that would be what I'd ask then. Because I'm afraid people say, oh, well, I'm just, I constantly am up. I'm really a positive person, and I think like this, and I just like, yeah. Give me an example. So maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just ask.
are
Give
we
me an
picking
example.
the 6 questions, or are we trying
Well,
to
I'm looking
hone
at
in
the
on
first.
the other
I
ones?
think it was the first one that you brought up, right, or the second one? I don't know. What we're,
Councilmember Winks?
yeah,
Yeah.
she's getting at a lot of really important things about character and competency, right?
But
and
are we
energy.
agreeing to pick, each one of us are going to pick one question that we want one of the 6 to be public? I
Oh, so
think that's
basically
a
what
good
you've done
idea.
is you've just picked your question.
I did.
So,
Her thing, liked it.
okay, we got one.
and that's, so
She's
we
been
just
saying all
each
along.
pick one right here, right now?
Yeah, I think that might, and then let's do that. Everybody pick one question right here, right now, and then we'll see if there's something that's not covered.
5 others to pick.
Maybe you should assign the categories and tell each one of us to pick one.
Okay.
Let's see. You better pick a category that fits the question that I like.
She's got hers already.
Stole
Let her
from
go
her.
with it. Pick another one.
Okay.
That is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
nice.
is that the number?
That's number 4.
4
That's
in her
number
category.
4. Okay, the category there is understanding city and District 1 council role.
That one's decided.
Okay, that one's decided. Okay.
Maybe Councilmember Cuesta does the issues and demonstration of learning about issues, and you figure out a way to ask it so that you get at
Well,
what
you
you
can
want.
pick your category. She'll probably let you.
Which one is that you?
Well, if you're going to go with these
Number 5.
categories, number 5.
Number 5, okay. Okay, issues and demonstrations of learning about issues.
I'll take number 6 if we're doing Linda's list of questions.
Okay. Amy's taken 6. Do you want number 5, Councilmember Cuesta?
Yeah, I'm probably going to whittle that question down a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But you have to do it now because we have to get it
Yeah, I'm
public.
just wondering.
That- We're talking to them tomorrow, so they got to know. Or pick a different category.
That won't work. That's, I think that's pretty objective, I'd like to think, going back to the nuts and bolts.
Okay. Let's go back to the first 3.
Was he finished? Is that what you picked?
Yeah, 5's great, and I'm just going to strike a couple of the words from it. If I can have 5
That's
minutes,
fine.
I'll be able to.
All right, but work on that right now.
Sure.
Take the second one.
You'll take the second one? Okay. So understanding of city and personal goals and visions. Okay, so you'll work on rewording your question. Okay.
I'll take number 1 and take my questions. I'm cheating.
You're using your own question?
Well,
Yeah.
I guess part of it is that first opening question is going to be really important. Like, what makes you, I think you asked something in the boards and commissions, what sets you apart from other people. But I don't want them to get into comparing themselves to the other candidates, so I don't want them to go down that road. But I think it's a good thing to ask, what makes you a compelling case or candidate for this? Give examples.
Are you criticizing your own questions? Which one of your own questions?
I'll do one.
did you
I'll do
like
one,
the
and
best?
I'll tweak it.
Okay, so that leaves 3 for me, although I like 7.
Well, let's just plan to do 7, because that one you can't
All right, yeah,
ask it any other way.
All right, so 3 is mine.
Could you read out? Well, I guess everybody's tweaking questions now.
Okay, so
I
when
don't think
you
I
got
need to
your,
tweak mine.
you don't have to redo yours?
I don't think so. I think I like it. as
Linda
is.
did a beautiful job
She
on my
did.
question.
Thank you.
I don't have to do a thing.
Really though.
Thank you, Linda.
Glad finally someone thinks.
Yes, I appreciate.
The grid
the
I
work
put
you put into
together
this.
is actually the
It
last
is.
time Randy made fun of me for putting
I think it's
rubrics
great.
together.
Sorry.
Say no.
Okay, there were a couple others that might have been a little, but I picked the perfect
I
one.
haven't looked through the others enough to know what
So
good ones you
the
put in.
compound ones kind of got a little complicated sometimes with some of them, but
More than 5-minute answers.
these are the ones
Yeah.
that they have an opportunity
Yeah.
to research and do. They should have it down.
Can I ask the question?
Yes.
Do they answer in here why they want to be a city council member?
Yes.
Yes and no.
Because otherwise, then I wouldn't ask that. But that straightforward question is, of course, what we're getting at as well. So I don't mind asking that stuff first out. But if that's one of the narrative questions, I couldn't tell.
It is and it isn't. I mean, I think that was one of the questions that was asked of the applicants, and some of them went into detail.
Okay, I don't care about how they answered. Well, maybe I do
You do.
because I want to.
Some of them aren't
You do.
detailed.
They're not detailed.
Okay, well, then I think I would ask what I have in number 1. Well,
She really wanted the question.
No.
I still.
no, actually, I think I would then.
Yeah, good.
I think we should all know that number 1, if we include, why do you want to do this? If we think it's not a very strong application for it, we got to ask that question. If we're
Yeah,
going to answer it.
The question on the application says this: please provide a brief statement indicating why you're interested in serving on city council and what issues do you consider most important to move Inglewood into the future.
Yeah,
Now, some took greater detail than others in answering that.
that'll help.
You'll have that in your paperwork.
I'm glad.
When do we get them?
You got
You
it
have it.
tonight.
That's the other
We need to
packet
go
that
home and read
You have to
appeared.
go home and
I
read before
see.
tomorrow night.
Yeah,
I go, oh, I thought this is kind of thick.
Okay,
Okay,
what
I
else do we
didn't
need to
know.
figure out?
My bad.
Well,
But we are going to get out of here at a decent time because we have
yeah, it is
lot of
9:30,
meetings.
so we're getting done. I like,
Close.
yes.
so
Councilmember
And thank
White,
you for the work you did, Linda, really. I
Oh,
liked
you're
it.
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Are you
And
going to
Amy,
use the
I thought
verbatim?
yours was very nice
question?
too.
From the second category?
Yeah, from number 2, understanding city goals and vision.
Probably not. Or I can. When the candidate introduces themselves and the way they express what they express tends to sort of shape the way I pose a question.
Okay.
I felt myself making modifications here and there to even our
Right.
pre-list the other night based on just what they said and how, and so I'm
this will be a-
perfectly happy reading it verbatim, but
You
I
don't
want to
have
leave
to
it
if you,
open.
right. And so
They
if
might-
But you
they
have to
prepare
give it
for
to her
this-
in the format that they're
so
going to print
use
it.
that format, and then
Right, and if they prepare for these questions.
it won't be
even if-
much departed
Right,
and
right.
to the point where it's
Okay.
a different question.
So are we okay with going with these the way we have them?
Works for me.
Yep.
The 6 questions and the rest of them,
Yep.
it's anybody's guess.
we're using, so I get clarity because I got to send this out. We're going to use Councilmember
Make you
Olson's
nervous.
6 questions as written to start with. Okay.
Right, the ones where it says personal competencies and
Yes.
it gives the heading, okay?
Yeah.
And then with the caveat that if on that number 1, if we feel like their thing was
After
off,
their personal statement. So
That-
opening statement, 6 questions, free for all after that.
And
that we
then
somehow ask that question.
for them too, I mean,
Sure.
because they're going to be able to ask us questions
Yeah.
and clarification too.
Okay.
Right, and the 7th question, and we don't necessarily have to put that seventh question.
Right. You could wait until the very end at almost 43 minutes and ask that. I mean, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, are we giving them a time limit on their opening thing?
I
We shouldn't do an opening?
well, aren't they all doing an opening tomorrow night?
They are.
Yeah.
3
We're
minutes.
going to already
okay, so
have
we could-
that.
yes.
3 minutes tomorrow night,
Okay.
which will time.
And then how many tomorrow night are we interviewing?
Three.
Not two, three.
I thought it was 2.
You have three. You
What
have
time are we coming here? 5:30 or 6?
tomorrow, 6.
The meet and greet starts at
6 every night.
And when
6. For now until forever.
when does the interview, when is the open house?
Tomorrow at 6.
At 6. So we're going to hear those
6 to-
3-minute openings at 6
6 to
tomorrow
when?
night. when we go to
6:45
the next-
essentially, because your first interview is at 7 p.m. tomorrow night.
Did we put anything out about this to the public?
Yeah.
I didn't
People
see
have been
anything about it.
asking me.
Yeah.
And then they've
Could
asked
we
me.
put that on next door?
Because we didn't know.
Could
Right,
we,
okay, so
could we put it on next door at least so
Yeah.
that the public, at least if they have them in it?
I
they can
did send
come?
out an email to my constituents, I think yesterday.
Yeah.
But, and I've talked to people that, don't know, so the quickest way, I guess, social media. That
Just
would
be social
Well,
media.
get it pumped out.
Facebook.
So the last, Mayor, the last question I had too was, and we didn't get, I don't think I had an answer, but I think I heard it maybe perhaps tonight, and that was, we are obviously going to be meeting, you'll be doing your interviews in this room. We were going to record them. Do you want them live streamed, or you want the recordings held until Friday, where we can release after Friday's interviews, or after Thursday's interviews and release them on Friday?
Could you repeat that question for me, Ms. Gregg?
So we have a recording system in here, the ability to live stream, but we also have the ability to shut live stream off and just record the meetings. And my question is, do you want them streamed live, or do you want us to record the interviews through Thursday and then release everything on Friday? That's just the direction we want to know. I need to know that. I
Nothing stops somebody from being in this room and recording.
understood.
So if somebody does, then, I mean, you still, I don't want to encourage any kind of potential game playing or anything. I just want us to do whatever we normally do.
And I think that's what I heard
think
from
that's
the
safest.
discussion tonight. So we'll just hit the stream button and go. I just want to clarify that.
We can't avoid that.
I know, but either way, we're trying to operate transparently, right? Because we're still recording it, we're still going to release it, but yeah, we can do that.
Councilmember Wilson.
Martinez.
No, I mean Martinez.
I'm like, yes, ma'am.
We should do that with Jill and I.
I just have a question about logistics. So it's in here tomorrow at 6 o'clock,
Yep.
and then they're gonna have our meet and greet, and then we're gonna get everyone out of this room or keep them in or rearrange it so that we have our. We're gonna
The podium.
just
We're
put
going to
this
put a
table
podium
back.
right there.
Yeah, there's to be a podium here
Yeah.
for them to do their opening.
So, but I assume these tables are gonna be
No,
somewhere else,
they'll be here.
or it'll just be like this, just with the podium over here.
Yeah,
Okay.
With people milling around.
yeah.
Okay.
It's
And
awkward,
then at
but
7,
I can't.
at 7 we'll start the interviews.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah, I've had more awkward situations.
Are we
I
seated?
think you guys put me in an awkward situation.
Are we seated here? Well, there's
I know.
We've all
we-
shared in that.
Actually, we'll probably be.
The worst is
billing as well.
the financial
Well, or-
person when we put her in such an awkward place.
yeah.
I don't know. So, really, this is the opportunity for them to meet the public.
And I
for us
assume
to
other
listen
staff
in.
can
So
be
that-
here, right?
If they wanted to be.
Yeah. So,
So we could actually sit back there in the audience until,
Yeah. I think that's the intention.
So are the names released now? So I got
You want me
someone
to? I can do it right now.
called me, left me a voicemail, said, "So who are the people?" I'm like, I don't even know them.
I would prefer that you just make it public right now.
Probably.
If that's okay with
Agreed.
that's okay, we could do
Like,
it.
I don't even know who
I don't either. I
they
haven't opened them
peeked.
Just give us the names because we got to leave and get some sleep.
So your candidates for tomorrow, 6 o'clock meet and greet, 7 o'clock interviews with Adam Willis. Your 8 o'clock interview tomorrow night is with Dana Liebert. Your 9 o'clock interview tomorrow is Hillary Lenz. On Wednesday, your 6 p.m. interview was Athoniel Sierra. Your 7 p.m. interview is with Mark Hessling. Your 8 p.m. interview is with Scott Danford. Then on Thursday, your 6 p.m. interview is with Andrea Mannion. Your 7 p.m. interview is with Erica Zerke. And your 8 p.m. interview is with Carson Green. Those are your 9 candidates.
Quick thank you to staff for ordering these in the order that we're interviewing.
Thank you very much.
One last question, though, because I think Councilmember Wade did such a great job of this the other night when she was doing her boards and commission things. She was taking notes against the grid, and I would like to be listening tomorrow night. Are we going to agree that at least these 6, 7 categories we have are some of what we're looking for, the best of each, and then are there other characteristics we're looking for that don't express themselves in those 6 categories? So that when we're listening tomorrow night, nothing surprises us, and we're not. I mean, that on the 16th we go, oh, I wasn't really listening for that. Are there other things that we all could sort of front?
I don't think so. I think it's
Does it cover it well enough?
Yes.
I think it does for me, but I just want to make sure. I hate.
I think it's a start. We could have gone through that, maybe a couple months ago, but
Right.
I think this is a really good start to do
So
that. I
maybe
would
put
like to
these
have that available.
in your grid and go from there.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Okay.
That would be nice.
All right.
All right.
I like the categories. I like the way that was laid out. I really do.
Is there anything else? We actually do have council member's choice. Does anyone have anything?
I wanted to say thank you very much for this evening. I thought it was a very nice what you did for Mayor Jefferson. I assume you got in touch with people and did all of that. That was very nice, and thank you for getting something for council to give to him. I mean, when you said you were going to give him they were giving him something, I go, hey, I know what I could give him, but that was more of a kind of a little bit of a jab thing and some sense of humor. I mean, I love him to death, but I wanted to give, and I just thought it went really well tonight. I mean, that was a beautiful. That everybody came, and it was a nice, not only for his family but for the community to see that transition. And quite honestly, it was very honoring for Intencio as well. And I think that was very nice because it also created that crowd and that energy to make sure that we said thank you to him as well. And I just thought that was very nice. So thank you for doing the work. It was really fun.
Other council member choice tonight.
Real quick, this is my first time on council, so I really appreciate the city setting up the Christmas tree recycling locations. I've used it many, many years at my residence, and now I get to officially thank you guys. So I appreciate it. I hope more people use it. I know the stack's getting pretty big over there at Bellevue Park. So
yeah,
it looks like some people are taking advantage, but a nice service of the city.
You can come back later and get the mulch when we mulch.
It's good that you're in Parks and Rec now because that's the
that's true. Tell them.
Okay, I do, if there's no more, I just want to, Amy, are you on the ETAC committee now?
Transportation? Yes.
Actually, I did get a request last week, and I have forwarded this to the chair of the Historic Preservation, from Jim Gibson. He's heading up the community meetings on the Loretta Heights college redevelopment. And in their recommendations, it does involve transportation as far as not opening Dartmouth all the way through. And I was just wondering if I forwarded the community suggestions, if you would take a look at it. What the community meeting has done is they've really asked us, they have asked Sheridan also for a resolution of support for
and Littleton too, I think.
Yeah, I don't know about Littleton.
I heard from Dave Black. I think Sally Daigle with Sheridan is spearheading this. Is that true?
I heard that. So
okay, because I went to one meeting and I think she was interested. So I think they're looking for all of the surrounding communities if we're talking about the same thing.
So I don't know when the next meeting is, but I'll forward that to you, and it might be something that you want to bring up at that committee. To give feedback on council, what they think about at least the transportation piece of it.
Sure.
They are looking at potentially opening up Dartmouth, I think. So the one meeting I went to over at Laredo Heights, and I know they've had several others, and so for some reason, because of the density and the housing there, they're really concerned to get some buy-in, I think, from the surrounding communities on the traffic especially. but you might even want to contact her and see what else is going on. But it might be something, that's a good idea.
Right, and Mr. Gibson has given me a list of the different communities in Denver over there that are in support of this community development plan. But they're asking us to send a resolution to the city, a resolution of support to the city of Denver. And so I just thought it's something that maybe we should look at.
Yeah, definitely. Will you forward that to me?
Yes, I will.
And then the other thing for that, now that you brought it up, is the historic preservation piece. I believe that she's also interested in trying to get some support from the historic preservation, and I know that they've already been a little involved in the Laredo Heights, but at least the height of that tower is, because it's visible from so far away and has been kind of a monument for all of the surrounding communities, that there might be some interest from us, and maybe we could bring something to the historic preservation as well.
Okay, and I actually did send the information on to.
And I might try to encourage that our Inglewood Historic Preservation Society also weigh in on that as well, and get it, and maybe we can get in touch with them to give that to them too.
Hey, Councilmember Questa.
Thank you for revisiting. We get forwarded emails from Krista, who's very kind to do that, and I appreciate her doing so. I believe that we were going to be copied on the responses going forward. I'm not sure if I'm getting them. For instance, there was a gentleman who's vision impaired. He was having some issues with just his commute on foot, and sometimes he gets a little too close to the curb, cars there. That's just one example, and there's been a few. Do you mind copying at least myself or all of council, and maybe all of council, on those responses going forward?
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Which responses?
Just these general ones that we're getting that Krista's forwarding to council. And my understanding is city staff is responding to those. I just want to make sure somebody's answering.
Okay,
I'd be happy
see.
to answer
I
myself.
misunderstood. I'm sorry.
Got it.
If it's
Go
directed accordingly.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
the
Appreciate it.
clarification.
You bet. And thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
City Manager?
I don't have anything this evening, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. No report. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Don't speed. Don't end up in court.